Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me.
Adam, what's your point? The future looks bright.
My handshake is better than anything I ever signed. It's right here.
You are a one of one.
My son's right about
I don't think I've ever said this before.
All right. Okay. So, Rob, we are on episode what? If you can tell me.
529.
529. Guys, a lot's going on right now. A lot of weird things. Weird weekend. Some people trying to pay $1.5 million for sex. I mean, the prices have gone up. I mean, this
found out about me.
Yeah, I mean, skip Bayless.
That is a big number for the horizontal bop.
That's a lot right there. We'll talk about that. Something's going on at FS1. A lot of people commented on it, and then you got stuff that's going on here locally. Stephen A. Smith talked about that story. We got Sean Ryan, who did a podcast, I believe, was it Friday night? He posted it. That ended up being a number one viewed podcast, I believe, on Spotify. He ended up being bumped up to number one with that conversation. A gentleman named Sam breaking down an email that was written by the gentleman who was in the Cybertruck explosion in front of the Trump Tower in Vegas. We will read that email and have some reaction to it. Then Trump was asked about shutting down TikTok. He says, why would I want to get rid of TikTok? And when he breaks down the numbers of how MAGA himself, others have performed on TikTok, the likes of Charlie Kirk, the numbers will shock you when you see this. Then a couple other stories. Another one is a weakened Iran prepares to face Trump 2.0. This is a Wall Street Journal story. We'll definitely talk about that. Elon Musk goes global with his playbook for political influence, specifically targeting UK and Germany, and sharing a lot of content by Tommy Robinson, who was arrested in Canada, and we have some thoughts on Tommy Robinson. Vinny was with Piers Morgan yesterday, and I think one of the topics that was brought up was Tommy Robinson.
Yes.
And, I'm sure you got to some share over there. Musk on California law banning voter ID to make voting fraud unapprovable. Trudeau decides to resign, and there was uproar when that took place, and we'll react to that as well. China's economy is burdened by years of excess. Here's how bad it really is. Wall Street Journal is breaking it down. So the whole idea of them being the dominant force in 2025 seems unlikely with the amount of debt they got into, and you'll see some of these numbers will reveal that. D.C. on high alert, going into unprecedented period of prominent events. That's a WAPO story. And I had somebody that flew in to meet with us yesterday, an Eastern European. It was the most disturbing conversation I've had in a long time. And some of the stuff I saw, and he told me, and then we ended up recording a conversation. Whether we go live with it or not, I don't know. But I think there's some stuff that is worthy for others to know about. This was not a regular person that came here. And we were here last night. Rob, what time did we leave this building here last night?
Around 10:30?
10:30, we left here last night. It took 4 hours, and we've been talking for the last 4 days. It took 4 hours until he finally agreed to do an interview. No face, only audio. You could hear his voice. And it was a source given to us by somebody who had been on the podcast before, who you guys know on December 19th when we had him on. And I'll give you a little bit of intel on that. Not all of it, but I'll give you a little bit of it. If it goes live and he agrees that he's comfortable with it going live, we will hopefully share it with you, but stay tuned for that. I'll tell you more about it. So more things coming up about the Cybertruck bombing. We'll give our thoughts on that story. New York, congestion toll takes effect, costing New York City commutes $9 to drive below 60th Street as drivers rip plan and trash Hochul. So think about this. Every time you go past 60th Street, you're paying $9. So imagine if you have a job, you're going back and forth, $9 every single time. That's their way to decreasing traffic. Now, that's only people in New York, and leftist policies will think of stuff like that, but we'll continue. Greenland Prime Minister seeks independence following Trump's acquisition comments. And Vinny, you just told me what?
Yeah.
An hour ago, where's Trump?
Trump just landed in Greenland.
Trump just landed in Greenland.
Down.
So imagine how many things he's got going on. and he just landed in Greenland after saying, hey, we ought to go out there and buy Greenland. And the PM comes out saying, hey, we'd like to have independence. We would entertain it. Now he's on a flight.
Oh, is that Junior?
He's already there. Is it Junior making a private visit after that suggests U.S. should buy the territory?
According to CBS News, yes, it's Don Jr.
Okay, so Junior just landed. Let's see if Trump is on that flight or not. Maybe it's just Junior that went there. Biden honors Wintour, Bono, Soros with Medal of Freedom. And Lionel Messi didn't show up. Some are saying that was a snub, but Denzel was there, Magic was there, and others were there. Bill Maher had a guest on. Woke left guest. You got to see the reaction of Bill Maher. Rob, do you have that clip? We may go through that clip sometime here today if we got time.
Confirm it's Junior. Don
it is
Junior's
Junior.
there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Coffee set to rise to insane prices in 2025. That's probably the bad news for some of you, for many of you probably. First power-producing advanced nuclear reactor in U.S. gets permit to build in Oak Ridge. Tom's got some thoughts on that. Oracle says it has building permits for 3 nuclear reactors. A rapper accidentally shoots himself while he's on a podcast, folks. I mean, this is the weirdest thing you'll see. They're all looking around saying, whose gun was that? But a guy shoots himself on a podcast.
He played it so cool,
Yeah.
though.
And
That happened again.
Scientology
My bad.
whistleblower dies after health battle. We had him on a few years ago.
Couple years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
we had him on a few years ago.
Good-looking guy, man.
God bless his soul. He's no longer with us. Meta taps UFC chief Dana White to be on its board. And then a couple other stories that we'll get into as well. Meanwhile, while we're going through this, something very interesting happened. Our merch team got a lot of requests of people saying, can we get some of these stickers and decals that you guys got so we can also put it on our iPads and different things? So they went to work and they got Zoom. Can you zoom in, Rob, into those stickers right there?
Decals.
So the decals, you got the Valuetainment logo, you got the allegedly, you got Only the Paranoid Survive, you got Future Looks Bright, you got the BizDoc, you know, Words Talk, Number Scream, you got the PBD podcast, Angry Patriot. Even Saucecast made it, an Unusual Suspect made it with the stickers. So how do you get it?
Nice.
Today, new hats that have been, some of the hats that are on the BOGO list now, you buy one, you get one free. These hats that we have, the ones that are on this list, Rob, if you can go down the black, the white, we added a few new ones to it as well. Any of these, you order one, you'll get one for free. And first 100, I believe it is, who place the order of buy one, get one free, you will get one of those stickers. Add it to your, order as well. Go to vtmerch.com, order Future Looks Bright. Last year, we had over 120,000 individuals that bought Future Looks Bright gear. 120,000 pieces that were sold last year. What's interesting is just 3 years ago, I believe, the number was 600. And last year went to 120,000. We wanted 1 million people wearing the Future Looks Bright gear. Nowadays, when we go all over the place, we're seeing people, they're sending a bunch of different pictures. Kids reading Academy books, kids having the gear on. Ladies now wearing it. My wife finally getting some merch for the ladies as well out there. But place one of the orders, buy one, get one free. Get the stickers on your way and then post them. Laptops, iPads, whatever else you want to put it on. Okay. Let's get into the story. First story I want to start off with is something I was talking to you guys about earlier, okay? And that is, Rob, what is that page? DC on high alert. There it is. DC on high alert going into unprecedented period of prominent events. That's a WAPO story. Okay. So you hear this, and it says, Washington, D.C. on high alert as it prepares for an unprecedented series of 3 national special security events, the electoral count on J6, Jimmy Carter State funeral on 11th, which, by the way, it's a whole week thing, starts from, I believe, the 4th to the 11th, but the main days are the 9th, and that Biden's going to be at and Trump's going to be at, and then there's stuff at 11th as well. Trump's inauguration on January 20th, but there's also a Trump event called the Victory Parade, Rob, I'm thinking is on the 19th.
The Victory Rally is on the 19th.
The Victory Rally on the 19th is a day before Inauguration Day in D.C., and this has caused Secret Service official William Matt McCool, who said that has never happened before, this many events. The electoral certification is designated a special security event for the first time, unlocking federal funds and resources. D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith confirmed that all city officers will be on duty, supplemented by 4,000 officers, 500 National Guard troops, with additional requests pending for the inauguration. Major protests are anticipated including the People's March of January 18th at a large anti-Trump protest on Inauguration Day and the annual March for Life on January 24th, Smith stated, "We are committed to upholding the right to peacefully assemble and protest. We will not tolerate any violence, rioting, destruction of property, or any behavior that threatens the safety of security of our city." Rob, can you pull up the video I sent you last night of Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent who worked under, I believe, Obama. Did he work under, he was Obama and Bush's, I believe. If you can go to the second 30 seconds, right there, if you can start it from right there, here's what he had to say in regards to the inauguration, and I'll give you my thoughts on what happened yesterday. Go for it.
I'll show you what I mean in a second. Another thing I've been telling you about, the inauguration's coming up. We're 2 weeks away.
Sure.
Folks, I'm really hesitant to talk about this, but I feel an obligation to put it out there because I don't have any other avenue to do it other than you guys in the Bongino Army. I don't think the Secret Service is prepared. And I think the Secret Service, along with the FBI, are lying to this transition team. This transition team knows it. And unfortunately, there's nothing they can do until they formally take power in 2 weeks. But when they take power in 2 weeks, Donald Trump is going to be sitting there exposed at the inauguration.
So here's not just anybody. Dan Bongino was a police officer, New York City police officer. And then after that, he went and served as a U.S. Secret Service agent from 1999 to 2011. So think about, during 01, 9/11, he was there. So you got, I believe, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he was Clinton. I think it's Bush and Obama, okay? So he's there during that time saying something like this. Well, this past weekend, Sean Ryan's podcast happens. The drone event happens. On December 19th, we have a John Ferguson that comes on. If you remember John Ferguson that we had on, he was a fellow that came up talking about drones. He runs a drone company, and he says, look, I'm not quite sure what's going on with these drones, but my guesstimation is there are some missing nuclear weapons, and maybe these drones in Jersey and New York that are following through Bedminster, maybe there's more motives there. Well, that gets the attention of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan retweets the video. This video gets a lot of views. We have him on. He gets on here. That gets a lot of views. He's all over the news talking about this, and he's just saying, I'm just a drone guy that's been in the business. He's been in 80-plus countries, worked with a couple different heads of states in different countries in the Middle East. I get a call from him, and we start talking on Saturday. And he says, there's something I want to share with you. Remember when I told you the source and all this other stuff? I said, yes. He says, well, here's what has come to us. This is the guy that saw the nuclear weapon in Eastern Europe, and he doesn't want to give his name, but I want you to talk to him. All right. So it's Saturday. I'm driving back with the kids, and then I get home. We do another call with him and another fellow, and then at night, Rob, I don't know what time the Zoom was at night. I want to say 9:30.
9:30 to 10:30.
Cincinnati was playing, yeah. 9:30 to 10:30. So Dylan's on the other side watching the game. We're on there for an hour talking to the source. I don't have a name. His name was John Brown. And there is, I don't see a face. The only thing I see is the audio. And he's saying, look, yeah, I made a prediction that this was going to happen and that's going to happen and this is going to happen, and all of that stuff came true on the assassination attempt. Something's going on, and they're trying to have an attack on January 9th, the 19th, or the 20th. 9th is the Carter funeral that Trump said he's going to be there. 19th is whatever the victory parade. And then the 20th is this. I said, stop it. I said, who are you? Well, I can't give you mine. I said, you lose credibility if you don't do that. And we talked for an hour. I'm like, look, just sleep on it. We get stories like this all the time. I'm not interested, but, we'll talk to some of the people that we know. And it sounds like some of the people already know. I said, well, no, I'm telling you, you got to see this. So I'm like, look, it's good. We're good. Don't worry about it. Conversation ends. Next day, Tony calls me and he says, he's on a flight. He's in Florida. I said, what? He's already on his way to Florida. I said, you got to be kidding me. He says, no. Okay. So flights booked, on his way to Florida. Yesterday is Monday. All day, my Mondays, Tom, you know my Mondays. My Mondays, I don't have a minute break on Monday. Like my first breathing that I get is around 6 o'clock. I go, and not even lunch. I'm just, boom, 6 o'clock, right? So eventually it comes that he is downstairs in the office. I can't give you the name of this person. He comes into the office. We sit down. We start talking. And he's telling me all these things. I'm telling you, why would I lie to you? I said, why would you lie to me? I don't know your name. I don't know who you are. I don't know the credibility. I don't know any of this stuff. Anyways, long story short, after 2 hours of talking to me, he is, just think about an Eastern European man. And he starts showing me things on his computer, very disturbing, some of the stuff he showed me. And then I said, look, finally, it was at a point, the whole team is waiting to see if we're going to do anything or not. I said, look, here's what it's come down to. If you don't tell me your name, I have to wrap this up. My kids are going to school the next day. It's their first day back from holidays. We got to wrap it up. So he's getting very uncomfortable at this time. So finally he makes a couple phone calls, and he says, here's my name. And he shows me his ID. I think that's when you walked in, right? When you walked in and you saw him, give me the ID. I look up the name. I'm like, so I go online. I'm like, interviews with him from 15 years ago on YouTube, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 3 years ago, having nothing to do with politics, all to do with technology and engineering and chips. That's the business he's in. Nothing to do with that. So then I'm like, so finally I said, okay. And I noticed something that he got an award, which I don't want to be too specific because if I tell you the award,
you'll know.
Yeah. So all this stuff is documented. Okay. So I said, if we do this, I don't recommend you do this. But I'm going to talk about somebody I met without giving any intel. I'll talk about it tomorrow. And he's getting more and more nervous. I said, if we do it, we'll cover the face, do the audio. Well, I don't want to do audio. Let's have me, tell John, and then John tells you. I said, I'm not going to compromise our reputation, what we have with the podcast. People trust us when we talk. They want to listen to them, and I want to vet it. I recommend you not do it. At this point, Rob's in the room. Rob, you're in the room. I think it's me, you, and him, and another one of our guys that's in the room as well. And I said to him, don't do the interview, fly back home. You were there when I specifically said
Correct.
that to him, right? Okay. I said, if we do it, we have to do it in this following way. That took around how long?
About the entire conversation?
The entire conversation. This is after 2.5 hours of me being with him, then you come in.
45 minutes.
About 45 minutes. 45 minutes later, he's extremely uncomfortable. I got to use the bathroom. I got to use the bathroom. Okay, great. Boom, boom, boom. We get on the golf cart. We go to the other building to start the interview. At this point, I want to say, I remembered when we started the interview, it was 8:41. So when we started, the start time was 8:41, and we ended at like 9:30 or something like that. And then, he was here. We had to order food because nobody had eaten anything for hours, and our production team was waiting. Anyways, by the time it was done with the interview, he says, I have sources that I'm confident something's about to happen. The last 3 predictions he got right. He's confident that something's going to happen on the 9th, the 19th, and the 20th. They don't want this man to take office. Now, I'm in the business of sizing people up, and when you're in sales and you have compliance, people try to take advantage of clients and insurance and stuff like that. You have to know who's full of it and who's not, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions of working with the Department of Insurance and Regulation, all this stuff. Anyways, so finally I'm like, while we're going through it, super nervous. At the end, Rob, it's only me, you, and him in the room. What happened to him at the end of the conversation?
He got very emotional towards the end, tears.
Emotional in a hysterical way, emotional in a way that he didn't want you to know that he got emotional.
Like he was holding back the tears, but he couldn't hold them back any longer.
Yeah. So this is a family man. This is not a guy that's single that has nothing to lose. He has a lot to lose. Sizable business that he's the CEO of, does very well for himself. And so for me, when I see things like this and somebody like this comes up, I'm extremely skeptical. But I'm not one that would sit there and say, well, why not talk about this? Because with all the stuff that's going on right now, who knows? The right person watches this and they may increase security. I don't know if you remember when we were in Hamptons and we did that one podcast when he was giving the RNC speech at like 12:30, we're sitting there listening to this. Do you remember that one right after Eric Trump gave the talk?
Trump,
We're up. And I'm asking the question, I'm like, how do you not have the glass for AV to protect against it and all this other stuff? For AV can spend a little bit more money to put the glass to protect you and all this. So look, if this causes a little bit more, because sometimes you can be overly confident, everything is good, all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden, you make one mistake, you put your guard down, and then you're done. And I hear Dan Bongino saying Secret Service is still not his Secret Service, and you hear Trump defending a lot of the Secret Service that know him and they're protective of him, all this other stuff. All I'm saying is there's 3 big events that's coming up. And if this guy comes in here, by the time it was done, every one of us started off skeptical. If the interview goes out, you'll be able to hear it and make your own decision on it, if it does go out or not. At this point, high likelihood it's not going out. 80% is not going out, where I'm just kind of sharing this with you, and whatever people want to do with this information, they'll do what they want to do with it. But there definitely is a little bit of a different, and by the way, even Blinken the other day said that China, Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, they increased the chances of a nuclear weapon being used from 5 to 15%. Did you see that last week?
Yep.
Did you guys see that last week?
Which is a huge jump when it comes to nukes.
What do you mean 5 to 15%? I mean, 5 to 15%. 5% is 1 out of 20. 15% is 1 out of 7. Is that what? No, Rob, if you just type in Blinken, 5%, 15% nuclear on Google, it'll come up. But it's a story that's a different kind of a story. Blinken, 5 to 15% nuclear. You'll see a story that'll come up. This just came out this week. Is that it right there? We have reason to believe that China engaged Russia and said, don't go there. Blinken told the outlet, adding, even if there's probability, if the probability went from 5 to 15% when it comes on nuclear weapons, nothing is more serious. The Secretary of State also noted that China likely stepped in to persuade Putin not to launch a nuclear weapon into space. Tensions were raised further into November, where Putin lowered the threshold for nuclear strike after. Anyways, so all this stuff is going on at the same time. Tom, how worried are you yourself during this specific season? Because we've been saying January 20th can't come fast enough. How concerned are you?
Well, right now, my concern is around transition of power, and that there are people with desire and means to interrupt that. But I sit there and I look at it, and you really, if you think about it logically, if a crazy act, incapacitates or assassinates Trump, J.D. Vance is the VP elect. And so I worry about disrupting the transition of power, but I don't believe that a single act can interrupt, the elected will of the people. You have to go like 5 steps on the other side. Oh, okay. Well, you're gone. So guess what? Biden's still going to be president. He's going to resign. Kamala's president. No. I worry about the interruption from third-party actors, because I don't worry about the transition of power. I worry about the orderly transition of power, if that makes sense. That's what I worry about. Is it going to be orderly? Because I believe the will of the people are done. And if you do something and you just flip the switch the other way and say, okay, now we're going to have this different government and stuff because we did this, America's going to go berserk. America, look at the will of the people, and the number of the people who came out and voted, and look how things have shifted. Look how close New York and California and New Jersey was very close. The will of the people is spoken. If you attempt to put a different leadership in place, this country is going to go berserk. And so I worry about disruptions to the transition, but I don't worry about like the ultimate will of the people. We've elected and we've made a choice. And they would have to fundamentally go to a completely dark and different place and then exert control on us. It's the whole martial law scenario.
Yeah, I asked him, I said, who was behind this? He gave me a name privately on who he said was behind it. And when we were on here, he didn't give the name. When we had him on here, I said, but who is behind us? Is it a Republican? Is it a Democrat? He says, no, this is not about a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is about a globalist and a nationalist. I said, tell me more. He says, what is Viktor Orban? Is he a globalist or nationalist? Said he's a nationalist. He says they don't like nationalists. These are people that want a globalist, control.
Yep.
They don't want the nationalist control. And so, how about you, Vinny? When you
He's right
hear
about
stories
that, right?
like this, yeah, no, I mean, at this point,
We call it establishment,
Yeah.
but I think establishment in the U.S., the U.S. establishment, is like 60% globalist.
well, I think there is Republican, Democrat, there's conservative, liberal, there's establishment, anti-establishment, there's globalist, there's nationalist. I think there's a lot of those that's going on right now that we're kind of going through. But your thoughts with?
Well, in regard to the security, Pat, why in God's earth would Trump trust an outdoor inauguration with the security run by the same people who have been trying to destroy him for all these years? The Secret Service, the FBI, zero trust. They have dropped the ball how many times, and their trust is at an all-time low, right? And that time, I don't think it's about tradition, especially with that inauguration. It's about safety, okay? And when let's think about it. Let's take a step back. If God forbid something happens, what happens? You're saying like the people will go crazy. I think these type of globalists, they think so far ahead, Pat, that if something happens to him and we blame Russia did it, or we blame, the Iran. I think at the end of the day, America hasn't been at war since when? The major one. I mean, we left in 2021, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But I mean, when we went to Iraq, Tom, with all we saw.
So you're not counting proxies.
I'm not talking. No, yeah, exactly. No proxies, major war. I think those globalists, the deep state, whoever you want to call them, they're dying for a war, okay? And our friend, Alejandro Mayorkas, I brought this up. Let's say 20 million people have come into the country, right? They said, Thomas Holman, 2 million getaways. Not arrested. I hate the word getaways. They just walked in. There's 2 million people in the United States, that's a lower number, that are roaming around the country. And then Thomas Holman said this, the number of people that were arrested that are on the terror watch list in the past 4 years, guess how much the percentage has gone up from Thomas Holman? 3,500% of terrorists on the known watch list have been caught here, okay? So, and then we hear reports that the surface-to-air missiles have come over. Now we're hearing that there's a tactical nuke that's just roaming around. I think the bigger picture is, first of all, if I was him, I'd be like, guys, you know what? We're going to have a ceremony, but this whole outdoor whatever, no, because I don't trust these people. Because what happened when he got shot by Thomas Crooks? Kim Cheadle stepped down, and that was the end of it. All right, who else is in trouble? She just gets fired, Tom, and that's it. God forbid he got his head blown off. We'd be in the same place. She'd be fired, and then America would be in shambles.
After being called before Congress to testify, and many people were saying that they doubted her testimony and they believed that she had allegedly been dishonest on 4 key points. Yeah. And so it's like, so you haul her in front of Congress. She's allegedly.
I want to show this. By the way, all this stuff going on. Here's a former CIA agent that I believe went on the Sean Ryan podcast. Sarah Adams warns 1,000 Al-Qaeda fighters in U.S. for homeland attack. Go ahead and play this clip, Rob.
Why do we care about Israel? Why is that our problem? It's like, that's just the first in a series. It's coming for us. That's like the test run.
The casualty count will be between 50 and 60,000 Americans dead. Am I wrong on that?
So I don't know the count that they're predicting. What I do know is Al-Qaeda trained and sent 1,000 attackers.
1,000 attackers. When did they come through?
So they finished training and they deployed them. Now, depending on how they come through, it could take different times, right?
So wait a minute. I just want to clarify. You are 100% certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda trained fighters within the United States borders?
Well, Al-Qaeda says they trained and deployed 1,000 for this attack. First off, I think there's more than 1,000 Al-Qaeda members in the United States.
Weird.
But for the homeland attack, that number is based on what Al-Qaeda is saying, so they could exaggerate it. However, they did have about 1,400 in the Hamas attack, so the number is not off from what they did in the first round of attacks.
And just to piggyback on this interview, and she said it, and I looked it up, and it's true, these terrorists now have undetectable bombs. Bombs that suicide vests, that you could walk into an airport, walk into screening, and nothing comes up, okay? Zero. That the dogs, the canine sniffing bomb dogs, they're not trained on even sniffing for this type of thing. So that's why when I've been saying for how long, Pat, that this Open border situation has been the number one problem, and they did it on purpose because now to get Trump out, that's the goal. That's been the goal. Trump has been the problem since 2016. He's still a problem right now. They have to stop him, and even if the 20th comes and God willing, nothing happens, he's still the enemy. He doesn't want war. Their machine is war. You've said this many times. If you're a big pharma, Pat, and you want to sell drugs, you need sick people. The military-industrial complex, their business is war. Building the tanks, getting the bullets, getting the airplanes, getting all the equipment. If we're not using them, those guys they're losing money. We need a war, and I think that's what it comes down to.
I want to go to Adam, and then right after Adam, I want to share with you the story from Politico saying the incredible world-altering Black Swan events that could happen in 2025. But before I go there, Adam, your thoughts on the story?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, so let me just go one by one real quick. Number one, welcome to daily life in Israel. Hello. The thought of 1,000 Al-Qaeda terrorists or Hamas terrorists or Hezbollah terrorists or a Houthi terrorist or Shiite terrorists just crossing your border and trying to blow things up, that is every single
But wait, are they letting thousands of people? No, you can't shush me. You can't say that and say they're just letting people in. Israel doesn't have an open border policy. You cannot. You can't. You cannot say that this is Israel. Israel has a dope border that they don't let nobody come in. We let them in on purpose.
Take down the caffeine.
No, I don't take caffeine. You can't compare the two. This is not an Israel thing, Adam. We have an open border on purpose because the deep state wants to kill our president.
Let me see what point he's making.
No, Vinny, go. It's all
I actually want to know where you're going. Let's see where you're going.
The point is this.
This is a regular day in Israel. Continue.
Yeah, this is a regular frickin' day in Israel, Vinny. Every day the Mossad wakes up or the IDF wakes up and says, we have 1,000 terrorists, if not more, that are trying to kill all our people. So we're getting a little glimpse of what they deal with, not just in Israel, in any normal civilized country that is dealing with terrorists. By the way, do you know who gets killed by terrorists more than anybody? Muslims. So this isn't a Jewish thing, an American thing, or a Christian thing. This is a barbaric thing that reasonable countries, democratic countries, free countries have to deal with. The difference is we have two massive defense mechanisms called the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean that prevent this kind of stuff. But the open borders here in America, it is a massive problem. So all I'm saying, before you so kindly interrupted, was this is a major concern. And why do you think that the Mossad and the CIA work so closely together for one word, intelligence, national security? Hey guys, this is what's going on. Well, here's what we found. Here's what we got going on. Is anybody shocked to see that terrorists might be in the country or in Canada? How many times do we see them burning the American flag?
But where are you going, bro?
Where am I going?
Where are you going?
Well, I was going somewhere until one of our friends interrupted.
Yeah, let's get there.
The point is this. You know how they say only the paranoid survive, but also the future looks bright?
Sure.
What do you always say, that it's 51-49?
Yep.
I don't know. I'm sort of the flip side. 51-49, future looks bright. This going back to Trump. So if I'm Trump, I'm thinking, Vinny said that he doesn't think that he should show up to inauguration. Totally disagree. What kind of show of weakness would it be not to show up to your inauguration? I think Trump has the biggest balls in politics. I think he has the greatest comeback.
Till he gets murdered.
So, Vinny, have some balls. Relax.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I think he has the biggest
point of view.
Vinny, for the last time, let me talk, and then you can go and rant. I think Trump is going to show up to inauguration because that's what he does. They told him, hey, don't go play golf because you might get shot. Did he go play golf? You bet you did. They said, hey, listen, next time you go give a speech, be in that enclosed glass that we recommend that you do. And what happened the first time? A lady passed out, gets out of the glass, and gives her some water. So Trump is gonna Trump. That's what we know. Now, the biggest question I have is the Secret Service taking notice to something like Dan Bongino says? Is the Secret Service taking notice to these threats that are apparently out there? I think they will. I think they should. And I think they need to be ready for anything. But I do think Trump is going to show up in Inauguration Day, get sworn in, and make America great again.
Okay.
Boom.
So, look, regardless of what happens here, I think there's a couple things to be thinking about. While we're driving and this conversation is taking place, Dylan and Tico overhear the conversation about a possible attack on inauguration. And they know that we have plans of being there, okay? So all of a sudden I hear an exchange between these two guys going back and forth. One is saying, no, we shouldn't go there because what if something does happen And the other one is saying, no, we should go there because if we have faith in God, we just have to know that God's also there. He's going to protect us. And so I watched this debate going back and forth. It was such an incredible debate watching these two kids, 12 and 11-year-old, having the argument, hey, we should, we shouldn't. One is based on fear, one is based on faith. And then there is reason and logic, which is what? Preparation. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And in this case, my main thing is the following. A person like the President Trump, he's going to be in many, many different places where there's many, many opportunities to want to do something to him. He can't sit there and hide. He just can't sit there and hide. Would I rely purely on the Secret Service to protect him? I don't think so. But what else? I mean, you have to have pre-conversation with, like New Orleans, Kennedy is from New Orleans, right? Kennedy's from Louisiana. What's his name? Senator Kennedy, right. And they were asking about the fact on what happened in New Orleans. He says, we had a few screw-ups. We messed up. He said, I want to think that Biden came down here, but we screwed up a few different times. And he says, the thing is, we can't get Kristi Noem to be sworn in fast enough to get people here for help on Super Bowl. When is the Super Bowl, Rob? What's the date for Super Bowl?
February 10th, I want to say, like that weekend. February.
What is the exact date for Super Bowl?
I'll tell you exactly
is
right
February 9th, 2025.
Okay, so, and it's in New Orleans, Louisiana. He's saying, we want this place to be safe. We need the administration to send us support. Right now, it's a little bit lackluster, but we cannot swear in. I don't know why they say Kristi Noem. What's Kristi Noem's job, by the way, that she's getting, Rob? What is Kristi Noem's job? They were specifically talking about Kristi.
It's not head of PETA, I'll tell you that much.
Homeland Security.
Okay, so that's why they sent Homeland Security. For sure, it's not PETA.
She's taking Mayorkas' job.
Right.
Is that what it is?
So, but the point is,
How do you not know that?
So the point is the fact they want protection. All in all I'm saying here is, I would highly encourage, and I'm sure they're already doing it. Trump's camps, one of the most brilliant camps they put together, being extremely proactive with the military to protect them, not waiting till he's in to speak to military to feel protected. I don't know. I'm always going to lean on having some PMCs to protect you that you trust. I would be putting a big budget together for private military contractors to come in and protect them for the inauguration that's coming up. I'm going to the next story. I got to go to the next story. We've been on this thing for 40 minutes. Next story, real quick, I want to share here with you guys. So Politico comes out with this article. Okay, and again, this is fear. A little bit of it, there's a difference between danger and fear. Fear porn is out there. Danger is what's really likely to happen. I don't know if you guys watched this movie, Homestead, that just came out. Have you seen Homestead?
No, it's good.
You know who did it? Angel Studios did it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I watched Homestead with the kids. It's an okay movie, but the thought of it, you ought to watch it just because of what happens. There is an attack. And there's this man who owns this property that he calls Homestead that he prepared for a nuclear war. It's worth you going and watch. I'd actually go back and watch it with you, Vinny.
Okay.
Is
it a series or is it?
It's just a movie. It's just a movie that's done. And acting was actually pretty good. It was actually a good movie to watch, and you will believe it.
Okay.
It was kind of like the Leave the World Behind or the other movie that they did about
going underground.
Civil War. It's a movie like that. So you have to kind of put some of these things in place and say, hey, there's likelihood of this happening 5-10%. Here's how I'm going to be prepared for it. Anyways, here's Politico. 15 potential Black Swan events that can happen in 2025. Largest cyber attack in history. Okay. Gary Marcus predicts generative AI will fuel devastating cyber attacks, exploiting weak regulation. Okay. So that's that one. A secret deal to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Successionists are on the march, okay? And the outbreak soon reaches epidemic proportions. What outbreak? They're talking about, who knows? A Trump and Xi alliance will emerge. Really? Okay. A two-state solution, okay? Market crash triggers a global panic. Amy Webb predicts AI misinformation targeting financial markets, causing panic and crashes. She warns uncertainty plagues investors as copycat attack hit London and Tokyo exchanges. 8, climate action becomes the norm. 9, unexpected geopolitical alliances and realignments. Okay. 10, South Korea's secret nuclear weapon program. 11, the American military moves into the unvaccinated age. What does that mean? Jacob Soul warns a flu outbreak cripples the U.S. military. Oh, give me a
Here
break.
we go.
As anti-vaccine policies spread illness, he knows the great American military machine is sick, eroding global alliances. Okay, here we go. 12, the people of Belarus could see freedom. 13, loss of power will fundamentally upend American life. 14, the temptation to reach for the nuclear toolbox may be too hard to resist. Oh, give me a break. He's talking about Korea and Russia and other places. Got it. 15, decisive breakthrough in quantum computing. Okay. Tom, any of these 15 you're looking at, does any one of these, for a guy like you that's pretty reasonable and logical, do you say, yeah, I can see that and that and that happening?
So I look at three things that when I scan, my threat matrix goes to three things. Cyber attacks, because I do not think that we are as secure as we think we are. Some of the greatest security we have out there is around our power grid and air travel, and yet we had a failure by a software update. Remember that took down the travel infrastructure for 6 hours?
CrowdStrike, who?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That they were doing an update, and so something as simple, and it is simple as an update, showed the vulnerability.
Yep.
And it took all day for this system, that system, this system, for all of the airports and airlines to get back up. So I think about cyber attacks, very real. The second thing I think about is it only takes one nut and a tactical nuke to create the dirty bomb. And I once read a CIA threat thing that said that they always felt that the dirty bomb was more dangerous than Putin saying, I'm launching a missile and I'm going to take out a city. You know what? Damn it. I'm going to take out half of Kiev. Here it comes. That probability is very, very low. That's part of the Cold War. I have more nukes than you, kind of a checkmate, perpetual, with the mutually assured destruction if you actually play that game. But the dirty bomb guys I do worry about. So I worry about news that there may be a semi-depleted plutonium bomb that if set off won't be a nuclear load, but be dirty. Yeah. So I do worry about a lone wolf actor or a lunatic independent state doing something like that. And then the third thing I worry about is a cousin to the cyber attack. Our power grid is not about the creation of power. It's about the systems that control the power. And so you could take down our power grid. That will wreak havoc because you have everything from water pumping stations. You've got refrigeration, hospitals. You take out power and you've got communication. So power out for an extended period of time, even regionally, all I do is take you back to what the Red Cross was finding in the recovery of Hurricane Katrina. The Ninth Ward never really recovered. It took 10 years later to show that it was still devastated. And without power, you will have things will run amok really quick as people become desperate. And then you'll have civil things that are breaking out with your people becoming desperate, rummaging and looting and trying to survive. So that's what I worry about. Cyber attacks, power grid, and independent states that say, I may not have a big nuke to launch a missile to a city, but I got a little one that I'm going to wreak havoc and put my name on it.
Well, what's funny is, it's not funny. What the guy talked about yesterday, he was showing the two different nuclear weapons that could be used to have a nuclear event on the 9th, the 19th, or the 20th. He said something that you can put in a luggage. Rob, you remember that what was he referring to when he talked about a
tactical nuke?
Well, it was a couple of them we showed, and he says, no, it's a nuclear bomb. He said no to this one. Yeah. He said no to this, if you remember. There was something that says, no, it's not this big. It's actually very small that you can carry in a luggage that can still cause a ton of damage. So, that's what happens with advancement. What's the good? We have better tools to use. Okay. What's the bad and the ugly? In a wrong person's hands, it can be used to destruct a lot of different people. Yesterday,
small, automated, and easy to transport is bad on the other side.
That's right. NVIDIA yesterday made an announcement. Was it yesterday or today?
I think yesterday.
Could have been yesterday. He announced, Rob, if you want to pull up the clip, did you see this when he's standing on stage with 20 different robots?
Yes.
Okay, so he's standing on stage with 20 different robots, and he's explaining that we're going in this phase of having humanoids, okay? And he breaks down that there's 3 different types of robots that we'll have, okay? Is this the one? No, it's another one, Rob, that he's standing literally
They all
in front
come
of.
up behind him.
They're
They
all behind
yeah.
him.
He
Yes.
talked about cars and robots.
It's right there. Sixth video. Sixth video. Is that a video though? Okay, that's him. So he's standing in front of those robots.
Jeez.
And if you can go find a video, Rob, because he explains, no, if you can go back to one right there, see if there's a video to show. He's standing in front of these robots, and no, it's not that one. I'll find it for you. And he says there's 3 different types of robots. The agentic robot. He says these are robots that can do simple tasks at the office. Then 2, he said the self-driving car robots. This is it, Rob. Go ahead. If you want to just play it from the beginning. Okay, play it from right there. Go for it.
This will be the largest technology industry the world's ever seen. And so we think that the robotics era is just around the corner. The critical capability is how to train these robots. In the case of humanoid robots, the imitation information is rather hard to collect.
Yeah, that was interesting.
And the reason for that is, in the case of car, you just drive it. We're driving cars all the time. In the case of these humanoid robots, the imitation information, the human demonstration is rather laborious to do. And so we need to come up with a clever way to take hundreds of demonstrations, thousands of human demonstrations. Go to the beginning a little bit.
Go to like 20
and
seconds.
Somehow,
go to 20 seconds.
Talk about his alligator jacket.
Yeah, see how those guys come. Actually, let the audience see it. Watch
the
this.
The next part is robotics. So
look at the audience reaction.
Humanoid robots.
People are crapping
Did you
in
notice?
their pants.
Only 5% is clapping.
Yeah, like, oh, God.
And those 5% that are clapping are probably employees of NVIDIA.
Yeah, we're taking over.
The ChatGPT moment for general robotics.
He breaks down the 3 different types of robots. He calls it the agentic robot, complete simple tasks at the office, self-driving robots, and human robots. And he explains how the challenge is to train. So we're going into a whole new era. We're going into a whole new era. Stuff that we're not used to. Stuff that we're not accustomed to. So the speed of adapting, it's as fast as the last 20 years have gone. The speed, this next phase, like imagine right now you're going to the mall and you're walking around 200 robots.
Or you walk into somebody's house and you're like, who is that? And it's just a robot doing dishes or something in the other room.
No. Guess what? Remember the Jetsons? They had
of course.
The housekeeper and maid.
She was a robot.
There you go. So that's the simple task example.
Yeah, but then go. Have you seen iRobot with Will Smith, where whoever's controlling these robots, whoever has the motherboard can do whatever that they want with them, and who's to say that they have them turn on us? I'm just being devil's advocate. You never know.
That's the same argument that was made about autonomous self-driving cars and also self-driving trucks.
Yeah.
What happens if they get hacked and a bad actor is now turning all these self-driving taxis into suicide taxis?
Yeah.
And suddenly they're driving them into crowds of people or driving them on the sidewalks. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, which is not good. I mean, I know Rob has, the girlfriend robot at Rob bought one of the robot. What? I wasn't supposed to say that.
I thought you returned that, Rob.
His wife is pissed.
Adam, what do you think about all this stuff?
This particular one or which one of these
Which one of these 15 things keeps you up? Which one of them are you like, well, that one could happen. I can see that happening. No, I don't see these happening.
Well, I think Tom is spot on. This is something that is a massive concern. The cyber attacks, we understand that it is the reality. I remember listening to Ted Koppel give a speech about this 10 years ago, sort of like saying, hey, guys, this is going to happen to our power grid. And everyone was like, whoa. But I'll tell you the one thing on this list that is actually realistic, and I actually see it happening sooner rather than later, and it concerns one particular person whose name is on the show, and that is number 2, a secret deal to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Apparently revealed that Putin brokered a 5-year pause in Iran's nuclear ambitions. Trump convinces Netanyahu to stand down, citing Saudi normalization promises while Iran secures advanced Russian arms. So this is already happening. We know that Iran and Russia have a strategic relationship. Has anyone been a bigger loser in 2024 than the Islamic Republic of Iran? Imagine this. I'm just going to sort of paint a picture for our business audience. Imagine you're a startup. You're a wealthy guy. And for 40 years, you start giving seed capital to 40 different companies. And your goal is to dominate the marketplace. Okay, we're going to invest here. We're going to invest here. We're going to invest here. We're going to give these people money. We're going to start this startup. We're going to do this. And we're going to hope to make an ROI, right? Some may work. Some won't, right? Percentage, some won't, some will. But rather than try to build these companies up, rather than try to make a higher ROI, our goal is to disrupt the market and sow chaos all over the marketplace. And for a little while, you look like you have promising returns, and then boom, in 1 year, 40 years of what you've been trying to accomplish has been decimated. That is now the modern day Islamic Republic of Iran. 40 years after Jimmy Carter, who just recently passed, 45 years to be exact. Look at where they are now. By the way, Iran's misery index just went up even higher. PBD, what's the misery index? You taught me this actually. The inflation rate plus the unemployment rate. So it measures the overall economic well-being of a country. They're now the 15th worst country to live in the world, and the second worst country to live in the Middle East behind the lovely place of Afghanistan. It looks like Syria's even doing better than these days. Anyway, Iran is a complete terror state. They've been funding the Hamas. They've been funding Hezbollah. They've been basically propping up the Bashar al-Assad regime. That just came crumbling down.
Your number one is Iran.
I'm just saying that is the most realistic. Why? Because it's already happening. Do you see the article in the Wall Street Journal? This is the top story in the Wall Street Journal. Here it is right here. Iran officially pulls their forces from Syria in final blow to Tehran's regional ambitions. Again, imagine 40 years, you're just funding all these operations, and then boom. How long did it take the Syrian rebels to basically dismantle the Bashar al-Assad regime? 10 days? Hey, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas. Boom, he's gone. He's hiding in Russia somewhere. So this whole conversation, about 15 things that could happen, this is actually happening. There's nothing that I hope for more than the great Persian people to basically live free again. And we'll see what happens with this alliance when Trump comes in between Saudi Arabia and MBS and Israel. And my assumption is after 45 years of this Islamic terror regime that has been demonizing and hurting their own people and hurting the entire region of the world, my guess is this their fall could come during the Trump era.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right. Well, we'll see what happened there. Rob, let's go to the next story. The next story I want to go to is, we have a bunch of them. This is one of them that's been trending on X as number one story, top story all over the place. And it's the story between Skip Bayless and some of the stuff. This is Fox Sports, right, Rob, if I'm not mistaken? It's what's going on over there. So apparently Skip Bayless offered a Fox Sports One, FS1 hairstylist $1.5 million to have sex with him. Okay. I mean, that's a lot of money. Okay. $1.5 million to have sex with him. Rob, if you want to pull up is this the story right there? Yeah. So he is a former 73-year-old host of Undisputed at the center of a bombshell 42-page lawsuit. Rob, if you want to go a little bit lower for me to read it. Okay. A 42-page lawsuit filed by former hairstylist Nushin Faraji, which is probably Persian, of offering her $1.5 million to have sex with him, claiming he could change her life. What a way to die.
Wow.
Faraji alleges Bayless made repeated advances, including lingering hugs and kisses on the cheek while putting his body against hers and pressing against her breasts, and accused her of sleeping with co-hosts Shannon Sharp. In one exchange, when Faraj rebuffed him by referencing his wife, Bayless reportedly replied, "Aren't you Muslim? Doesn't your dad have 3 or 4 wives?" Okay, so that's
he said she's okay. I mean, it's kind of
the lawsuit also implicates Charlie Dixon, Fox Sports EVP of content, whom Faraji accused of grabbing her buttocks at a birthday party, and mentions Fox host Joy Taylor, who allegedly responded, "Get over it," when Faraji confided in her about Dixon's behavior. Faraji claims she faced a misogynistic, racist, and ableist workplace where abuse was tolerated, and says her complaints to human resources were ignored. Okay? So that's that. Now, Stephen A. Smith responds to it. Rob, do you have the shorter version of the response?
I cut it down. It's a little bit shorter.
Okay, go for it. Stephen A. finally responds to it. Stephen A. and Skip had a show together for many years. One of the points that he makes, which is kind of funny, and about the $1.5 million, here's what Stephen A. had to say about this.
I don't know what happened. But just like I said, I've known Jay-Z for 25 years. I can't imagine that. I've known Skip for just as long. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. Especially when they brought up the $1.5 million. The Skip Bayless I know has a hard time giving away $15. He's one of the cheapest people I know.
Cheapest?
That's just me. But that doesn't mean that I have any inside knowledge about any of this. I don't, and I'm not going to get involved. I think it's incredibly dicey and irresponsible for people who don't know to act like they do know. But in the same breath, I also feel it's important that if you know people or you think you know people and you've had a long-standing relationship with those people, that it's not a crime for you to say the person that I know, the person that I've been around, the person that I worked with in his case, for 4 straight years, from 2012 to 2016, doing First Take every weekday morning at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. The person that I knew since our days at Fox Sports when we would appear on Jim Rome's show, okay, The Last Word and stuff like that, and we were in the same Fox building off of Pico Boulevard and Avenue of the Stars. The person that I've seen that really, really trusts almost no one and doesn't expose himself to anybody, eating the same breakfast and lunch every day. His vice is a Diet Mountain Dew, and he doesn't socialize with people. That's the guy I know. So imagining him being in this kind of position is shocking, to say the least.
Now, you got to see. So this is. Shannon Sharp says, don't mention my name. Why are they mentioning my name? Don't get my name involved in this. I don't want to have anything to do with this. It was 30 seconds on how much Shannon Sharp responded to it. And then Jason Whitlock, who actually had a very good take. And Jason Whitlock and I don't know if we're going to sit there and say we're going to be breaking bread next week. But Jason Whitlock, I actually thought had a very good take. He says when he was at Fox Sports 1, they wanted him. Did you see this take or no?
No.
He said, actually pull it up, Rob. I think it's funny to hear what he says. If you can find the shortest version of it, he says, they try to put me with her. So we did a show together, and afterwards I said, I don't like it. I don't think it went well. He says, I would much rather have somebody that's older, that's been around, that nothing will happen, than you give me a 25-year-old girl.
Oh, with big breasts and like light brown. And okay, I got you.
He says, I know I'm eventually going to be tempted to do something. Yeah. Don't put me in a situation like that. He said that, right? And then Marcellus Wiley responds back, and Marcellus Wiley says, I've never heard of rumors about Charlie Dixon and Joy Taylor, because Joy Taylor is another girl that's involved in this whole thing. Joy Taylor, who used to be married to a guy, and her husband divorced her because he found out.
Down here in Miami, Joy Taylor, is that Jason Taylor's sister?
Yes, Joy Taylor, who was married.
I think she was married to Zach Thomas, wasn't she? Oh, no, that's all right.
No, somebody else you're thinking about. Zach Randolph, you're thinking. Joy Taylor used to be married, and then apparently the main EVP, who is Charlie Dixon, if you type in Charlie Dixon, they had a relationship together. Apparently, her husband found that, so her husband left her. And then she used to date also a guy named Earl Watson from the NBA. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, the point guard, UCLA.
Yeah, and her and this other guy had a relationship together. This other guy that had a show, what's his name?
She was married to a baseball player.
Emmanuel Acho. How do you say his name, Adam? The top right. Can you go to Daily Mail? Emmanuel
Acho.
Yeah. So, Marcellus Wiley said, I heard about Emmanuel Acho and Joy linking up together, but he never heard about Dixon. There's a bunch of drama going on right now over there with Fox Sports 1. It's interesting. It's entertaining. Adam, what do you know about, you're a guy that's NBA, diehard LeBron fan. What do you say about this year?
Isaiah Thomas, you know that. Look, I don't. Let's state with what we know for sure, and then what is just speculation. Skip Bayless worked with Stephen A. Smith for how long? They had a great show. Yes. First Take, Stephen A. Smith, beloved, credible source right there. Number 2, Skip Bayless, not exactly the most beloved person. He's actually like a thorn in everybody's side.
He's a Cowboy fan, so.
Okay, that's what happens. But allegedly, to offer to pay someone $1.5 million.
Can you pull up the girl's picture, Rob, if you have it?
Yeah, I mean, she better be the best looking
by the way,
girl
while
in
you
the
do it,
history
when you
of
guys
the-
said
of
Joy
the world.
Taylor, I googled Joy Taylor and then her body.
But that's not
She's
who-
rid-
that's-
I know that's
that's
a
not who they're
different girl.
convinced of.
But I'm just saying she's involved. Her body's ridiculous. I'm just gonna say that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, anyway.
What do you say? By
Okay,
the way,
listen. Here,
I saw a picture, by the way,
Yeah.
which was kind of funny. So they said something about, and you have to verify if this is real or not, Rob.
Is that her?
That's the hairstyle.
That's her.
That's the hairstylist, right?
Okay,
Her right
come
there.
on. I mean,
She's okay.
maybe that's $500. Anyway, the point is this.
So
Oh my
stupid.
gosh.
And Adam's got that experience. But
As
go
I
ahead,
said-
continue telling us.
Listen, when you have
We
abundance,
don't know
you
the rates.
When you have abundance, you don't got to pay. But the point is this:
You're a walking stock market.
Listen, I don't think anybody doesn't know this. If you're going to pay for anything like this, these are $1,000 transactions. To pay $1.5 million, this is a settlement
Yeah.
for whatever alleged fraud or whatever sexual misconduct you did. To offer to pay $1.5 million, in my opinion, humble opinion, that's a literal joke. All right, I'll give you this. And then she turns around and does this. Look at this lady. How old is this lady? Find out her age, please. The point is this. Skip Bayless, if he actually wanted to get and have to pay for something, if this is something that he was so desperate that he needed to do, a couple $1,000 to do the trick. $1.5 million? What are we talking about right now? You know, we learned with the E. Jean Carroll with Trump thing, how much he ended up having to pay her.
Millions. It just got.
And he didn't even touch the woman. It was all rape
Fantasy.
fantasy, wasn't it? So on one hand, there's believe all women. I get it. And then the other hand, there's women who lie. You know, down in Miami, we've talked about this. These Alexander brothers, these stories are starting to come out. People are coming out of the woodworks. Tom, don't say anything. Thank you. Yeah, I mean it, Tom.
Don't touch your phone.
These stories are starting to surface. 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50 stories. What's going on? How many stories have been out there about Skip Bayless? How long has he been in the news and the media? 40 years is the first story in 40 years?
Yeah, I mean, look.
So I'm hesitant to believe this.
Yeah. So what do you think, Vinny, when you hear stories like
I
this?
just think, I mean, I don't know. The saddest thing about those situations, and apparently, allegedly, was a Shannon Sharp thing. Something was mentioned about the Shannon Sharp. He did something, but I'll remember. But the point is, the worst thing about this entire situation is, any girl that's been around or just been around you by yourself can say something like this. Let's say it's not true. There's zero credibility. She felt awkward because he hugged her one time. She's still gonna get money. Like at the end of the day, she's gonna get something because he's gonna probably settle, so they don't have to drag this out in court. So she's gonna win. At the end of the day, she's gonna win, and his name for the rest of his life, you're gonna Google Skip Bayless. This is gonna pop up, and for the next couple of years, because Skip Bayless isn't in the news. When's the last time you heard of Skip Bayless? I don't. It doesn't have that much credibility. But
Tom, your thoughts?
So, you know, what's really interesting here is that I don't know Skip. I don't know anything about this. I just sit back as a casual observer. And there was a book that broke in 2000, I think I know, because it was right after Y2K. I think it was called ESPN, the Unofficial History, Uncensored History or something. But this book, and I want to say the guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but all of this stuff was in there about, yeah, there it is, Uncensored History, Michael Freeman. There was stuff in here about Chris Berman. There was stuff in here about Mike Tirico. He published a document in here where Mike Tirico got suspended for 3 months because not one, not two, but 3 interns had accused Mike Tirico of forcing himself on them. And so it just shows that, you know, in certain parts of entertainment, and sports broadcasting has been one of them, things happen and people... There's like almost like a culture of hookup or something, because it's not one thing. I mean, this was the whole history of ESPN. There's a lot of guys really upset about this. There were guys that were married that were like, they didn't want their wives knowing things about what the stuff was going on because they had nothing to do with it. There was one, who's the ESPN anchor was like an expert on hockey, but he actually drowned in his own pool. It was truly an accidental death. But anyway, his wife was like very upset that all the stuff was going on, and he was known as a guy who was very clean. Man, when we're done shooting, thank you, go home. He was not a party or anything like that. But the whole thing around sports, there always seems to be this, you know, I don't want to call it this kind of a boys will be boys and things going on, and and things with in broadcasting. By the way, Hollywood's got its own problems, but in sports broadcasting, dating back. And, Bayless was at ESPN during a time where they had this ombudsman and they had done a bunch of things that they were trying to lock it down, because Bayless left ESPN when First Take, he said it on there, right? Stephen A. 2016. And so I look at it and say, these things have been reported a lot, and it's easy to say that. And then you have a bunch of people, including Stephen A., saying, this doesn't feel like Skip. This doesn't feel like Skip. And when there's a lot of these things going on, it seems pretty easy to be tempted as a person providing services, hairstylist, maybe makes what she makes, and you want to go grab the bag. And on one hand, and on the other hand, so on one hand you say, gosh, is this another woman doing that? And then the other side you say, gosh, there's another guy that kind of slipped and fell. Because there's just been a lot of this that's gone on, unfortunately, with sports networks, sports broadcasting, and ESPN has had like 3 nuclear events in 25 years on it.
Let me ask you a question. So this person writes a lawsuit like this, $1.5 million, claiming that Skip offered her $1.5 million, okay, which I don't know who in the right mind believes that, okay? Who in the right mind believes that, okay? I don't know who would believe that for $1.5 million. I like
his suspicion of settlement versus transaction.
Yeah, and it's not like this is a person who has that kind of money. What's Skip Bayless's net worth?
I googled it. It's like around $20 million.
Okay, so Skip
You're
Bayless,
saying he's gonna give 10% of his net worth, 5% of his net worth for a one-time gimme for a hairdresser.
let's say he's $17 million. You think he's going to give 10%? And by the way, $17 million means that doesn't mean you're sitting on $17 million cash. That could mean you're only sitting on $2 million of cash, equity in a property, da-da-da-da-da. So it's not like you have access to that kind of cash.
Agent, taxes, lifestyle,
yes,
net.
Exactly. Exactly. So for you to hear, but the point is this, how quickly a story like this spreads for it to do what it's doing, that's the part of it, okay? How quickly a story like this spreads. And what does it do Skip's reputation? I don't know. But in the back of your mind, you're kind of like, this guy's, I remember early on in insurance, when we were small, nobody was bothering us. Everybody was very nice to us. And they're like, oh, we believe in you. Oh, it's so great. You have such a big vision. You go do your thing, you big vision guy. And then all of a sudden, we get 1,000 agents, 2,000 agents, 5,000 agents. Then we put an event together like, oh, these guys are growing. Then a story comes out about the commission we're paying. I've had a lot of weird rumors. This was the favorite one of all time. You know what the rumor was?
No.
Do you remember this one?
About where you're from?
Yeah, go ahead. Say.
Yeah, Patrick is actually secretly over here because he has a lot of oil money.
They started spreading rumors. The reason why Pat can afford to pay high commissions is because he has money, oil wealth. And you know what I said? I said, it's true.
Yeah.
I said, run with it, buddy. Yes, we do have that kind of money.
It's an he's a cousin to an OPEC sheik, and they're laundering OPEC money.
Yeah, well, the truth is, Pat's got oil money, and I said, listen, it's the truth. That's why we pay the kind of commission that we pay. No, but the reality is some rumors stick, and then from there, Tom said something the other day. Tom said, look, when you get to a certain level, you almost can't get to this level without the targeting. Watch this. You ready? How did Bill O'Reilly's career end?
He was racist.
Yeah. How did the
an assistant claimed sexual harassment?
There you go. How did Rush Limbaugh? What was the criticism he got? Right? Racist. Are you kidding me? White nationalist.
Privately racist.
They didn't let him buy the Rams.
Out of control. Addicted to OxyContin. Right. Says all these crazy things.
That's right. So Glenn Beck. How did he end up? You got all these other. Every one of these guys you go through, there's a story at the end. What happened with Kobe? There was a story at the end. What happened with Michael? Gambling father. What happened? Every Tiger, every one of now. Here's the other part as well. The other part of it is some of the stories are going to be like, well, Pat, some of that story is true. Yeah, you know what it's called? Person walks on water. There's criminal activities that you should be held accountable to it. Then there's rumors. You just have to be very, very careful nowadays. If you do it, the crime you're about to commit, just assume you're doing it with everybody seeing it. But minimize. In the Army, they used to say, Never be in the barracks by yourself with another soldier. Never do it. It's the first thing they taught us in MEPS. MEPS is like when
you sign up and take the test.
When you're going through the whole thing, you're getting the 11 shots. Never be in your barracks by yourself with another soldier.
With another female soldier.
Another female soldier. Okay. Never do it. Never do it, because if that door closes, whatever story they tell, they have to believe her.
Yep.
Okay, never. Another rule: any girl that you're gonna go link up with, always ID them before. I'm like, you're kidding me? No, you have to. They would break these things down with soldiers in the army. Just say, look, just follow these guidelines, and then one by one, you would see guys that got in trouble and they're out. And so you just have to be very, very careful. Now, by the way, you know what this hurts? You know what this actually hurts? Guess who this hurts?
The average guy.
You know what Marcellus Wiley said? He says the most dangerous. He says, I've been in this business. And by the way, Marcellus Wiley was a great athlete. He played for the San Diego Chargers, I believe, and the Cowboys, and a couple other guys. He played. He was actually very good.
D-end.
Yeah, a stud of a guy himself, right? Marcellus Wiley. So he said the worst place when you work for these networks, you know what he said? The makeup room.
Wow.
He said it is the worst room to be in, the most dangerous room to be in, where the worst things happen.
Why is that?
He says because that's where there's a makeup girl sitting there. You're the famous guy. You start talking to them. There's some kind of a connection. There's some kind of an affinity. There's stuff that could happen.
There might be dressings. There might be changing clothes.
You have to be very careful in those rooms.
But also in some of these sports rooms, look, I remember when Erin Andrews was the hottest thing on TV, and looking back at it, she's somewhat smart 7. But now you have these, like Molly Karam is gorgeous. She's amazing. I think she does first.
She used to be married to.
She used to be married to Jalen Rose.
Yep.
You have my girl that I straight up have a crush on if she sees this, Michaela Andrews. Is that her name? NBA, gorgeous girl, black girl. Sometimes I'll go that way. You never know, guys. Michaela, but she's sitting there with Giannis. She's sitting there with the best of the best. I mean, so the people that they're putting on TV, I'm saying these sports reporters are absolutely gorgeous. What do you expect to happen? Just genuine question. What do you expect to happen when you have the best athletes in the world and then you put them in with the hottest girls on TV? What's going to happen?
So if
they're obviously going to hook up.
So if you ran a team, what you would do is you would hire the ugliest girls as cheerleaders to make sure your players are safe.
This girl, Malika Andrews.
Did you hear what his strategy is?
Yeah, ugly cheerleaders.
Can you imagine?
Yeah,
you
the cheerleaders.
Let's go, Adam. You play for the Lauderdale Ducks.
You know what
ran
happened?
by Adam Sosnick. Here's our cheerleaders.
You know what happened to Miami Heat?
But guess what? There will never be sexual harassment.
Ever. Like, yo,
That's
you
a
think I
strategy.
slept with that one? Yeah.
Listen, you heard what happened to Eric Spoelstra, Miami Heat?
No.
Head coach? All right. Married a cheerleader, Nikki. She's out there. Nice girl, whatever.
Hi, Nikki.
Here she is. Ends up marrying her. Okay. Turns out that she wasn't exactly the best wife. And now she's out there and, I see her on dating apps. Good for you, honey. But the point is, you have to do your vetting a little bit better. You're marrying a cheerleader. The point is, you have successful guys and hot chicks, and you put them in an enclosed space, whether it's a dressing room, whether it's on TV, behind a desk, whether it's in the locker room. What do you think is going to happen? Now, as a guy, you just need to be appropriate and not be a dirtbag. And then as a woman, you need to basically understand that this is the world that you're coming in. Have you ever seen the situation where a girl goes in the locker room and literally there's naked football players showering?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe what I saw. Why are you in the locker room, honey? What are you doing in there? Anyway, it's a tough situation here. But the bottom line is
experience you had in the past. Tom, go ahead.
Listen, I play college football, guys.
Well, no, I mean,
we had a deep, profound respect for the third string quarterback because he couldn't throw a ball to save his life. But when you ever heard of Arnold Palmer? Listen, Arnold Palmer.
Tom, go ahead, Tom.
No, I can't believe I've never heard anything negative on Erin Andrews, and you throw shade at her. Oh, a smart 7.
Now's not the time to start.
She's married
Erin
to a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Now, he may have been a center, not a defenseman, but he could still check you into next Tuesday, dude.
Yeah. Not forget she was
Jarrett Stoll.
But FYI,
I'm not worried about it. The point is this: 20 years ago, she was the hottest thing on TV. Yeah. These days. You wouldn't even look twice at her because that's how hot the new girls are.
Wait, but you want to talk about perversion and
I've
men?
always found her to be a really smart sideline commentator.
Yeah, you might want to keep quiet there, Tom.
No, hold on. Not only gorgeous.
Right? Talking about the horizontal mambo, Tommy. Number 5.
You want to talk about perversion, though? You guys remember she got a $55 million lawsuit for Marriott because some guy was
peeping in the hole,
peeping
yeah.
Tom in her thing. And
Peeping what?
And
Peeping
filmed.
Tom.
And filmed it.
She got a $55 million lawsuit against Michael David Barrett and the National
Number
Marriott at
5,
Vanderbilt
Tom.
University because he hacked her thing and she was naked and he recorded it. You didn't hear about that?
No.
Yep, $55 million.
We had a guy that used to work here that he was in love with every week.
Gorgeous.
Where we would do booking meeting, the number one person he would recommend,
Aaron Andrews?
Aaron Andrews. I'm like, dude, I don't know Aaron Andrews. And he says, are you kidding me? She's the hottest thing. I'm like, dude, it's fine. I said, why don't you start a podcast? You go interview her.
I love her.
But it is what it is. All right, let's go to the next story here. Next story. Canada's Justin Trudeau announces resignation following party pressure amid criticism of Trump, budget handling, and here's how the man did it. Go ahead, Rob.
I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future.
Family?
Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement.
Okay.
So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today.
Get out of here.
I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust,
stupid voice.
nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the president of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
You're right. You're right. We can pause. Honestly, this is plenty.
may I please?
So let me just say a couple things here. He faced plummeting approval rating and mounting frustration over inflation and cost of living issues, compounded by threats of U.S. President Donald Trump, who proposed a 25% tariff on Canadian imports. Trudeau resignation follows the abrupt departure of Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, who warned that Trump's policy of aggressive economic nationalism would define us for a generation and perhaps longer. Tom.
So Justin Trudeau's been in power for a decade, and everything went downhill after COVID. That's when it happened. The policies he took and the impugns that were on the economy and on the people of Canada, it all started there with the COVID policies. If you go take a look at the approval, look, okay. The disapproval rate, oh, wow. In 2019, he wins the election, and then all of a sudden, what COVID happens right after that, and here goes the disapproval rating. Look at it. Look at this. And when it's time for the recovery of the economy, it's getting
74%.
That's correct. That's correct.
Wow.
And by the way, right before our election, November of 2024, in Montreal, there was a seat that had been Liberal for 34 years. It went Conservative. In Toronto, it was a special election, I believe, in September. There's a special election that was Toronto, August, Montreal, September. But these two special elections, these were seats. This would be like Nancy Pelosi losing in an election in her district, and it's because of the leader. That's what happened. And guess what's on the mind of Canadians? Inflation, the border, and economic strength going forward. Wow, does that sound familiar to some of the polling here in the United States? And then he comes down here. He's supposing, now that it's all come out, he had hasty meetings with his cabinet and came down to see Trump and proceeded to mishandle the private conversation, not the dinner table where we all saw the picture of everybody. Remember at the dinner table we saw it? Well, there was a private conversation with Trump, and apparently he mishandled it, and Trump goes, what are you talking about? There's $100 billion, remember that number? That we need to reconcile between the two countries in terms of trade. It says, how about if I just put a tariff on you? We'll fix it that way. So Trudeau came down here with no answers. He goes back up to Canada and gets his ass kicked in the media, in Parliament, and guess what? But it was already, this was just the last straw. Actually, it's the last half of a straw. The Trump thing is the last half of a straw because they all want better trade agreement with the United States. They all want better energy policy with the United States. and they want inflation to go down. And the Canadian dollar, US dollar used to be rather close together. Right now, it's 72 cents on a Canadian dollar. That's what you give them if they hand you a Canadian dollar here in the US. You give them 72 cents. So it's way far apart.
Interesting.
And now, Polyev, and that's how I'll teach you how to pronounce it.
Polyev,
Say
eating the apple.
Say Polyev. Polyev. He is the conservative who is probably going to win because Trudeau is heading for the worst national election defeat in Canadian history. They didn't see any scenario where Polyev was less than 66%.
Yeah, he just did a podcast with Jordan Peterson, which I thought it's great. I'm glad he's out there. I think he's a little bit pompous and arrogant. I think he needs to get out there a little bit and do a little bit more talking.
Agree.
Because he's got great policies. But glad to see him out there talking. 4 days ago, gets 2.7 million views in his podcast with Jordan Peterson. He should do more of podcasts like that.
Well, there's a lot of us that are happy that certain things about January 6th and about COVID have come out. Canadians are very happy that things have come out because it was a horrible step that was taken against the Canadian truckers. They were all supposed to stop. They tried to turn off their bank cards, their ATM cards, all of this, and it was horrible. And that was the last straw moment with Canada. It's like, wait a minute, you're like a dictator? The truckers were protesting, and then they said, well, if they're going to protest, we'll turn off their bank. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. You're doing what? That was the last straw moment. And from that moment, the economy hasn't gotten better, and this is it. So he can call somebody,
Adam,
phone a friend if he's got any.
Adam, go ahead.
But it's over.
I'll just give you the bottom line. Justin Trudeau has been a dead man walking, really since the last year. This vote of confidence basically was coming whether he liked it or not. The once golden boy rising star of Canadian politics who basically entered office, I believe, in 2016, right when Trump took office. When he came in to office, his approval rating skyrocketed. It was about 65%. Now he's leaving office like a slap shot to a Canadian hockey puck with the lowly 22% and a 74% disapproval rating. Nobody likes this guy. Everyone I talk to in Canada on Manec, shout out to all our friends on Manec, every single person, they're like,
hates him.
How the hell do I get out of Canada? Yeah. What can I do? How can I move to Florida? I said, listen, talk to Ron DeSantis. But everyone in Canada is trying to get out of there. I know feminists in Canada that are like, he's the worst. How do you lose feminists in Canada?
It's so funny you're saying this. Literally, the last Manec I did, driving here, was with a fellow named Matthew Ablakin. Okay?
I know Matthew.
You know Matthew.
I think he's
of course.
Syrian,
and he asked me a question about Justin Trudeau. I made a video, and it's on trending topics on, what do you call it?
Manec.
And it's specifically about
Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau in Canada.
Yeah. And everyone, nobody has good things to say about this point. Trump has been, he said, I don't like my military captured. I don't like my president's woke. So this guy's the wokest guy out there. He's the poster boy for progressive politics.
Now, keep in mind, this Pierre guy is a pro-choice guy, and he's a pro-same-sex marriage guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
I think he's not. Is he really conservative?
He's definitely a conservative. He's going to be the head of the Conservative Party. I've been following him for a little while now.
He's probably a
I think he's more of a. I think he's more of a libertarian.
Yeah.
By the way, if you look at poly markets right now, Pierre Poilievre has a 90% chance of being the next prime minister. 90%.
Yeah.
And the Conservative Party has a 94% of having the most seats.
Yeah.
But numbers don't lie. We all know what the approval ratings of Trudeau are at this point. By the way, crying like a little bitch. I said this in the last podcast. Earmuffs, if you got kids in the room. The guy's a total fag. And that doesn't mean he's gay. I actually think he's straight. Just a total fag.
When you say that, tell me what you mean when you say that.
That means, you ever seen the episode of South Park?
Yeah, we played it.
Okay, did we actually play it? Yeah. It means, all right, they give it an example. If you ever see a guy riding a Harley Davidson, being really loud and honking and waking everybody up in the middle of the night, what's the first thing you think? Fag. So, and then the guy asks, I don't even know if we can play this, can you?
No, probably not.
Don't play it. He says, well, I'm gay. I don't do that with my Harley Davidson. He goes, am I a fag? He goes, no.
Well, listen, one time you said it, you said it. You keep saying it's annoying me already. Like,
I'm sorry, but it's true.
Listen, I get that.
Okay.
You can have other,
and that's my word for him, Pat. I'm sorry. I won't say it again.
Okay, go ahead,
but I think
it's kind of offensive.
You ever see when
word
Justin Trudeau
used.
corrected the lady when she said, excuse me, how can we help mankind. He goes,
I have the
"Excuse
video.
me,
I have that.
excuse
I was
me,
going to show that.
humankind."
Yeah, I was going to show that.
So-
just to
He's a
sum up,
total- he's a bitch.
just to sum up who Justin Trudeau is and who he is as a person. This girl, I forgot what event it was. He interrupts her at a Q&A when she used the word mankind, and he says, we don't use that. Just look at this is who he is, and this is the leader of a country. Like, that's your concern about this, and listen to the crowd. Go
Watch
ahead.
this clip. You tell me you don't agree with me with my assumption.
Is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to look into
we like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind, because it's more inclusive.
There we go.
More inclusive.
Yes, thank you.
We can all learn from each other.
That sums him up. That sums up who he is. His whole thing is right there. But
now I'll go back and say use the word with.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
The whole time.
Thank you. I won't use it again.
But he
excuse me.
Bill
was right. You're
so
fake news.
For all my Canadians, because we've been going back and forth. So all his woke agenda, Bill C-16, free speech concerns. He pushed for radical gender ideology, censorship legislation, Bill C-11, diversity quotas, supported drag queen story time. That's one of those people. His blackface scandal. Yeah. He's just a
let me just sum this up,
leader,
if I can.
and nobody likes you.
He's the guy
Bye-bye.
that puts the tampons in the boys' bathrooms.
That's the guy.
And then uses that himself.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's him.
Okay, let's round it up. There's a lot of citizens north of us. There's 41 million Canadians. There's 38.7 million Californians. So those of you listening, it's basically about the size of California, and 90% of them live within 150 miles of the border. They are looking for leadership, and I think at the end of this, with all of the Governor Trudeau and 51st state, what's about to happen is we're going to have an economic treaty with Canada that levels out currencies and allows, more free trade, border trade. It'll be similar to the EU, but the US and Canada, I think that's where it's happening, because crazy like a fox, Trump, that's where it's going. We're not going to 51st state. That is where that's how he's poking them in the way that he knows how to do, because the art of the deal, we're going to see an economic benefit to both countries, and that's where Trump's going to take it. That's what's going on.
To validate your 51st state thing, only 3% chance on Polymarket, 95% chance the Conservative Party takes over. So just to put a little perspective. This is what Trump said about Canada. When was this?
This was the 6th, so yesterday.
Many people in Canada love being the 51st state. The United States can no longer suffer the massive trade deficits, subsidies that Canada needs to stay afloat.
An EU
Justin
type
Trudeau
agreement addresses all those
reside.
things when you read the list. An EU agreement checks all the boxes.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next
point.
Story.
Is the era of progressive politics.
Let's go to the
and
next
this side of the
story.
world is done.
Let's go to the next story. All right. So UK, with everything that's going on over there, who is Tommy Robinson? Elon Musk keeps retweeting things about Tommy Robinson. Piers Morgan had a different position to take about Tommy Robinson. I think Elon and Piers had a back and forth. Elon talked about his brain hasn't had an upgrade for many years. Piers Morgan retweets that comment and says, hey, why don't we have a podcast together so you can help me upgrade my brain? They're going back and forth. Okay, now this is Tommy Robinson getting arrested. Rob, if I'm not mistaken, this is in Canada. He's getting arrested. Let me first read who Tommy Robinson is to the story that we have from Forbes, and then we can get to this. So Tommy Robinson Elon Musk has reportedly posted in support of British far-right activist Tommy Robinson. Now, this is Forbes saying that, pinning free Tommy Robinson to the top of his X profile and sharing a dozen posts on the subject in one day. Musk previously reinstated Robinson's account after it was banned and has intensified his backing, coinciding with increased involvement in UK's politics following Donald Trump's election win. Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lemon, is the founder of an anti-Islam English Defense League and a prominent far-right figure in the UK. He is serving an 18-month prison sentence after being found guilty of contempt for repeatedly violating a court order relating to making libelous claims about a Syrian refugee, which he has continued to repeat despite the ruling. So now, again, from the article, you can tell where Forbes stands. Obviously, this is him getting arrested in Canada. I believe, Rob, go ahead and play the clip.
Yeah, this is a while ago.
You got volume?
How long ago was this, Rob?
Yep, outstanding immigration warrant. We'll talk about it in the vehicle, okay?
I think people thought it was actually recent, but it might have been several months ago.
June 24th.
Okay, so this is a year ago. So now,
No,
he's been in jail, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, he's in jail right now in UK.
Really?
Is he or is he not?
He's in jail, and they're saying that he might be in solitary confinement again because they don't like him. They hate him.
What is he charged with? Do we know?
Well, I think it was he contempt of court, if I believe, because it had something to do with the silenced documentary. If I had to guess.
Vinny, what are your thoughts on the story?
Well, I mean, because your question initially was who is Tommy Robinson, Pat? Like, and if we think about it, the guy is exposing something that was happening. The UK grooming scandal. For those people that don't, if you don't mind, could I give them a little brief background? So, for you guys that don't know, vulnerable young girls, Tom, I think me and you talked about it, Tommy, often from disadvantaged backgrounds, were systematically exploited and abused by organized groups predominantly consisting of Pakistani Muslim men. Okay, these cases were in towns like Rotherham, Rockdale, Telford. They exposed systematic failures in law enforcement and social services, and authorities accused of turning a blind eye to avoid being labeled racist or culturally insensitive. All right, in Rotherham alone, there's an estimated 1,400 children were subjected to abuse between the late 80s to 2013. The J Report published in 2014, and they brought these abuses to light. He's been opening his mouth. In regard, did you see the Silence documentary? Did any of you guys see it?
Mm-hmm.
And you saw it. The guy is exposing this story of this kid who was in the school, and Tommy Robinson gets all this undercover equipment and goes into the school, talks to teachers, talks to parents, talks to janitors and all this stuff, and they all corroborated the story that this Syrian kid was in fact the problem. He was the problem. He was treating girls like that and all that type of stuff. And then Robbie, did I send you the video of Tommy Robinson? Because just to give you guys some stats, just a little stats that people get pissed off, migrants, okay, are 3.5 times more likely to be arrested for sex crimes in the UK than British citizens, okay? New figures released by the UK government have revealed that foreign nationals are twice as likely to be arrested for crimes compared to British citizens and 3.5 times more likely to be arrested for sexual offenses. These stats were compiled by the Centre for Migration Council using data from police forces for the Home Office of the Office of National Statistics. So he's pointing out a problem, and the cover up from all these all the leaders, all the police department, all the I don't know what it's called in England, but he's exposing the truth. All these people were arrested. He's pointing it out, and yet because they were complicit, they're all going after him. And they're trying to bury him because he talked about it. And this is him, the one before. Pat, this is him in 2011 exposing what this is an old ass. Look how young he looked. He was exposing it back then, but look at this liberal comment. This interviewer trying to shut him up and saying white people do rape people and stuff too. Go ahead and play this, Rob.
The only one who's been murdered by a Muslim gang, you probably don't, I do. Do you know any 15-year-old girls that you know that you've grown up with that have been raped or pimped? You don't. So I don't expect you to understand the issues.
These are all personal issues of yours.
Personal issues in towns and cities like mine that are happening, and they're not happening with the Sikh community. They're not happening with the Jewish community.
And indeed, they're not happening with most Muslims.
No, they're happening within the Islamic community. This is what I'm saying, that it's an Islamic problem. And when I'm just a simple person, so I'm just a normal person, but when I'm looking at, I have to look for where this hatred is coming from.
So are you seriously suggesting there aren't white drug dealers and there aren't white gangs?
Of course I'm not. No, but
Sikh gangs or any other kind of...
No, I'm not. But I'm saying some of these specific issues are coming from the Islamic community, solely the Islamic community. Terrorists wanting to blow us up, constant hostile activity towards our youth. All these problems, and from sitting back, there's got to be something it's coming from. None of the other communities are spreading it.
He's trying to point out a fact.
We're a symptom of the problem. The English Defence League are a
You're
symptom.
claiming that community is spreading it. Actually, what we're talking about
Members of the
here...
community.
Yes, exactly, as you could talk about members of the white community doing all sorts of atrocious things.
And then the last one, Pat, there's one, and Rob, I sent you of that older gentleman telling a story. It has gotten so bad in England, I don't think you've seen this, you're not going to believe this. And the people at home, you're going to be shocked if you haven't seen this already. It's an older gentleman, Rob, a little bit lower. Keep going. That guy right there. So he's, a woman here screams, she calls the police show up. They check the neighbors, and they find a 13-year-old girl naked and drunk. You guys will not believe who they arrest. Pat, you have to listen to this. Play this.
And at 2:30 in the morning, the next morning, a woman on the other side of Rotherham had picked up the phone and dialed 999 because she'd heard a young girl screaming in the house next door. Police had gone round to the house. They found this 13-year-old girl with another young girl. She was almost completely naked. She was blind drunk, and she was with 7 adult Pakistani men.
7 guys.
She was drunk and leery. And South Yorkshire Police arrested the 13-year-old girl for being drunk and disorderly. They took her back to the station, put her in the cells, eventually charged her, and she was convicted. They didn't even question the men as to why they were in a house with a 13-year-old girl who was nearly naked.
So here's the thing.
Why?
My question is, why the protection? Why the protection? Because it's obvious who's doing it. You should see the police report. I couldn't even send it to Rob because of the nature. You would get sick to your stomach as a father reading some of these cases of these Pakistani guys. Why can't you say what it is? Tommy Robinson is saying that it is a problem that these Pakistani Muslim men, okay, and he said like 30% of men that are involved in these gang rapes are called Muhammad. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings. Like, what's the #1 name in the UK for the past couple years?
Well,
it's Muhammad.
The #1 baby name, new baby
for
name
boys.
Muhammad.
Okay,
in the UK, it's not Henry or Charles
or Noah. Noah was number.
Frederick.
Noah was none. But here's my thing, Pat. 2 questions. Why is it racist for pointing out what is happening? #1. #2. Why the cover up? Why the cover up, Tom, from these people that are in charge that don't want to come out and say it? Just say what it is. Say what's doing it.
Well, I think it's pretty. So if you take Tommy Robinson and you take other reports that are out there, you come to this conclusion. You're like, why? It certainly appears that these folks are being enabled, and there's prosecutions not happening. So why is there not an investigation? Why is there not prosecutions? And you get really nervous about it because you're like, is there one group or one neighborhood that's being, kind of just, whatever? That seems kind of odd to me.
Is that weird? England's cooked, by the way. You want to talk about messages from Canadians? You should see. Bro.
You know what's a weird thing that happened yesterday? By the way, which clip is this, Rob? Is this a different story, similar to what?
Yeah, similar to what Vinny's saying. Different father who had to contact the police 200 different times to try and get help after his daughter was being gang raped, according to Tommy Robinson, by a group of Muslim men.
And this is him with Jordan Peterson that he's having a conversation with.
Yes.
Okay, so now watch this. Did you hear what Andrew Tate announced yesterday?
No.
Okay, if you go to Andrew Tate's Twitter account, Rob, if you go to Andrew Tate's Twitter account, Andrew Tate, which is very interesting on the mix of events, he is announcing he's running for Prime Minister of UK. Okay, and the party is called BRUV, B-R-U-V.
Yes,
okay,
bruv.
If you can go a little bit lower, keep going a little bit lower on just to show the previous tweets. He breaks down what he's about. If you can just go a little bit lower, keep going. He breaks down on what he says. There's a few. Keep going down. I'm trying to see which one it is.
Simulation, integrity.
Yeah, I mean, what he's talking about, keep going until you see where he talks about what the issue is. That it? I think that's the one right there. In the majority Filipino areas of UK, must look and feel like British. In majority Indian areas of the UK, it must and look, feel like British. In majority Jews, it must. In majority African, show more. Immigrate, expect to adapt to British culture, no matter how small the norm. We like quiet Sunday mornings. Problem, leave. You respect British culture, standards of hygiene and social norms. You operate within our parameters. Multiple complaints of the contrary, visa revoked. You do not belong your own culture. You do not bring your own culture. Your culture already has a home. Ours does too, and it's Great Britain. If you miss the culture of your host nation, go home. By the way, the reason why this is interesting, he converted to Islam about a year ago, year and a half ago, May.
Yeah.
May of last year when we
atheist
went
Christian.
Yeah. So and Andrew is a guy who's a stats guy, who's a data guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, he has said a lot of different things, and he's called Islam the last true religion on the planet, and he said a bunch of different things about it. His brother is still a Christian, Tristan, so they're kind of going through it together. But when you go through this phase and you look at stats, the question is a very simple. What Tommy is posing, the questions he's asking is, debate it.
Yep.
Debate the data. Debate the stats. debate. You can sit there, if you're a Muslim, you can say, yes, we're winning, we're taking over. Yeah, you're right, you are. Guess what? UK allowed you to do it. Props to the religion of Islam for being able to infiltrate once the financial capital of the world, Great Britain. We're not talking about anybody. Great Britain. Great. The Great Britain. How many countries start off with saying, we're the great United States, the Great Britain, right? Okay. So props to them for infiltrating, but guess what? This is the byproduct of being too naive and saying, yeah, it's okay, being too tolerant. Now you experience this. And the most beautiful thing about what's going on over there, and it's so tragic when you hear stories like this with the kids, but the most incredible thing that's happening right now is people who were once supportive of it are now saying, whoa, listen, you crossed the line. This is a little bit too much. This was not the plan. Now you're crossing the line. Now we got to figure something out here. So I'm kind of glad Tommy's getting the eyeballs that he's getting. I want to also play the opposite side of what Pierce said about him, and even Tommy retweeted what Pierce said about him, Rob. If you have the clip of what Pierce said, this is the one. You were on the show yesterday. Just put him up real quick to have Pierce say a couple words about him. Go for it.
I've watched Silence. I'm in it. He has a go at me, which is fine, because I was on Good Morning Britain at the time talking about this. Here's the problem. He repeats in the film a series of things which are lies. That's why he's been found in contempt of court, and that's why he's been put in prison. And the reason we know he's lying is that he was sued by the Syrian refugee in a court, and a judge, in a very lengthy verdict and conclusion, which I read in full, and I recommend, by the way, that you and everybody else watching this goes away and takes the time to read the full judgment from the judge. All 5 of the witnesses that Robinson produced in court were discredited by the judge. He said they're not credible. He said a lot of them are making stuff up completely. The attempt by Robinson to portray the Syrian refugee boy as the villain, not the victim, was a lie. The boy who was accused of bullying him was thrown out of the school because of his previous prior record and this incident.
This is what prompted Musk to say, you haven't had an upgrade for a while. And he said, why don't we do a podcast and help me get upgraded? Adam, your thoughts on the story?
Well, listen, Tommy Robinson is just a symptom of an overall problem right there, and that is basically mass immigration that's happening around the UK. I mean, 10 years ago when they started talking about Brexit, this was an issue that a lot of people in the UK were talking about. I've told this before. My ex was from Wales, whose family lived in London. And the first time I went to London, I thought that I'd be eating crumpets all the time. Turns out I was almost under Sharia law. It was pretty interesting. So Andrew Tate does have a point, and I respect the fact that he has an opinion. And there's some things that he says that I don't agree with, but as Ronald Reagan once said, someone you agree with 80% of the time is a friend and an ally, not a 20% enemy. So I do agree with Andrew Tate. And what we're talking about goes back to exactly what PBD was talking about the very first segment on this discussion. These are globalists versus nationalists. Every nation has their culture. Every nation has their tradition. Every nation came from something. There's no reason that you should have to abandon all your culture, all your tradition, everything that you are, to basically have someone run amok and take over your country. So Andrew Tate is from what city in the UK, if you recall? He's from Luton. You know who else is from Luton? Tommy Robinson. So they've had some discussions. They think they've met up before. I think they've been friends, or at least have done some content together. But this, to me, actually comes down to one thing. You know, I live in Miami. Miami's a very massive melting pot. We have little Havana, where all the Cubans live. We have little Haiti, where all the Haitians live. We have Bal Harbor, where all the Jews live. There's all these different pockets. PBD is from Glendale, where the Armenians are. I go to San Antonio.
Watch
that's
your
all.
language.
I'm sorry,
Watch it, homie.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I didn't know.
We all know that
Miami.
every city has their little sort of pockets. I was just in Brooklyn. There's so many Jews in Brooklyn. But here's the difference. It comes down to one word: assimilation. Everyone has to at some point assimilate and understand that you're living in, whether it's the UK, under a British country. In America, you have one rule: love America or get out. You know, it was. He said on the other day. It was our friend that you had on the show, Douglas Murray, said America is the only country you could live in, and that you can basically bash America, say that you hate America, and then not leave. Any other country that you bash, you want to get the hell out of there. But the assimilation thing. Here's the difference. All these different types of cultures and all these different types of people, they want to come in and eventually assimilate, whether it's the first generation or the second generation. The problem that Vinny is pointing out with some of these, our friends in the Muslim world, is they don't want to assimilate. They want to infiltrate, they want to populate, and then they want to dominate. And that's exactly what Tommy Robinson is pointing out. If you want to come in and embrace British values or American values or Canadian values, come on in. That's what this part is. That's what we're here for. But if you want to basically set up your own version of Sharia law in our country after fleeing a country that has failed, whether it's Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Afghanistan, whatever it is.
You know, it's interesting. So here's when I had, who was Douglas Murray? When I had Douglas Murray on, I said, where is the data? He says, UK stopped reporting on data a long time ago. Remember when Norway, Dominic Tarzinski was here and we said, we don't let one Muslim in, and he was explaining how they have the lowest in EU, lowest rape, lowest unemployment, lowest, all these things Poland, he was talking about. Poland. Yeah. What state did I say? What country?
Norway.
No,
that's
Poland,
our other friend, Poland. Yes.
But Norway just did this report, Rob. If you can pull up this report, Rob, from Norway that Humberto sent in, breaking down where the crime is coming from. All you have to do is track the data. This is not hard to do. If UK really wanted to track the data to see where it's coming from, you would be able to look at it and say, yeah, what's the problem? Yeah. Why don't you track the data? What are you worried about tracking the data? Because here's Norway, okay? Here's indictments for violence per 1,000 inhabitants. Lowest is who? People from Norway. Then you got Pakistan, Syria, Russia, Afghanistan, Eritrea, which is like a country in Africa, Iraq, Ethiopia, Somalia. Okay.
Somalia, you have almost a 50% chance being a victim of crime.
Yeah. So, but guess what this does? Now, what if this said U.S.? What if this said Brazil? What if this said Spain? Great. Yes. Then you address that.
Exactly.
But it's not saying that. It's saying Pakistan, Syria, Russia, Afghanistan, Eritrea, Iraq, Ethiopia, Somalia. What common trend do you see there and a pattern? What is it?
They're coming
What's the
from
common
the
pattern?
Middle East or North Africa.
Is the religion Christianity?
It is not.
Is it Catholicism?
No.
Is it Scientology? No. Is it Judaism?
That's not
is
what
it Mormonism? Is it Muslim? What is it? When you see that data, then you have to ask yourself, what's going on here? There is not a single country, like, you know, the H-1B visa debate that they're having over here?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are saying, go back to your country, you're not American, all this other stuff. I actually understand that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and let me explain what I mean by it, for me to understand the American that is worried about a guy from Iran that's coming to go back to your country. Percentages are what? If I get this many people that are coming from there, my experience has been, you know, this, guess what? I'm going to automatically put you in a box that you're going to be like them. Totally understand that part. Yeah. I mean, you have to kind of look at that part. And then you have to create a certain filtering system to bring the best in. If there is no proper filtering system, then it's a shit show. Then U.S. turns into UK. Then they ought to be completely worried about who's coming in and who's not. This is why the illegal immigration on the border, they're calling all of them asylum. It's like, give me a flipping break, right? So UK is a perfect case study of what America should be studying to make sure it doesn't happen in America. You got all these guys, the social media influencers, the younger guys, that on Twitter, on X, on YouTube, that they're talking about Islam and Muslim, and they're getting into the heads of a lot of these younger guys that say, man, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe that's the way to go. And then some of the stuff that you hear about the way they look at kids, underage, well, you know, because of this, you know, it's justified if somebody this. The other day, one guy said, well, if you show too much of skin and you get raped, you kind of deserve that because that's
you're promoting
You're promoting it. And what is this, Rob?
This is Mohammed Hajib. I believe he was
Hijab.
on the podcast before.
Pronounce his name correct. It's Hijab.
Okay. This is him.
He's not been on a podcast before. No. He almost got on the podcast, but we never had him on the podcast.
Now he's with our old friend Sneeko.
And Sneeko's been with you. What's he saying?
He's defending, Mohammed is sex with children and calls pedophilia relative.
That's our guy, Mohammed. Go ahead.
Is that from that part that you want to play?
The whole clip, you need the context.
Okay, go ahead.
No, we don't think there's any problem with it at all. We think that it's just because we have a different idea of what it means to be a child, which can be tracked historically. But now, if the situation has changed, we say that the general principle in Islam is, you know, you can do what you kind of want, so long as, I'm not going to say you can do what you want so long as you're harming. You can marry whomever you want to marry, so long as it doesn't cause them harm, physical and psychological. So, for example, if I marry a 100-year-old woman, or Sneeko, if you marry with your tank top a 100-year-old woman, and you get involved with her intimately, she might die. I mean, she might have some kind of health problem. So we would say that, well, if you were to be intimate with a 14-year-old or 13-year-old who's got huge hips and huge breasts and huge body, I mean, quite frankly, we would say it's not going to have the same effect medically. I mean, no one can make the argument. But in these countries where we live in now, one is legal and one is illegal.
Is this guy trying to justify having sex with a 13-year-old girl? Is this what he's trying to do right now?
Adam, you have to listen to the end. Okay. He's not finished.
Marry a 100-year-old woman, but you can marry that girl that's you can't be. You're a pedophile if you go for the girl that's got the hips. And once again, pedophilia is very relative.
Very relative. And I'm just
Hold
reading.
On. Is that the end?
Yeah, he's
okay. So
let Vinny go.
And guys, and let's just go back, because Jesus Christ, you know what I'm saying, we're Christians, and you have to say what it is. Jesus Christ spread love, spread peace, spread all that type of stuff. Was he a virgin, Tom? Jesus Christ?
Yes.
Okay. He's treated women great. If we're going to go according to many Islamic historical sources, including the Hadith, collections of the Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad was betrothed to Asia when she was 6 years old, and the marriage was consummated when she was 9 years old. I'm just throwing out facts. This guy's name is Muhammad. That's what he's basically preaching, is that this is that type of mindset. And I don't agree with it 1,000%. I think trying to sit there and trying to say that sleeping pedophilia is relative is absolutely bonkers, okay? It's bonkers. So then when it's on a mass scale and you're seeing these Pakistani guys just treating these women like whatever, and I see them catching them in their interview, and they're like, well, it is what it is. That's their attitude, is it is what it is, because they're taught that. And that's it right there. If you want proof, married a 9-year-old girl, which is kind of...
That's ChatGPT?
That's ChatGPT.
Is that from ChatGPT?
Yes.
Can you read that, Rob?
Yes, according to traditional Islamic sources.
What did you ask, by the way?
I asked, according to Islam, did Muhammad marry Aisha at 6 years old? And it says yes. Aisha was one of the wives of Prophet Muhammad, who was betrothed to him when she was around 6 years old.
What does the word betrothed
mean?
mean? What does betrothed?
Given to him.
Like given. Okay.
Right.
When she was around 6 years old, and a marriage was consummated when she was around 9 years old. This is based on reports on Hadith literature, which are records of saying the most commonly cited source of information of Hadith, considered two of the most authentic collections of Islamic traditions. I mean, we've read this and we've seen this, right? But the biggest part about this is, okay, so guess what? Somebody reads this. You read this, what do you say? That's freaking insane.
Of course.
But what if somebody reads this in Iraq? What if somebody reads this in Afghanistan? What if somebody reads this in, pick one of those countries, and they say, what's the big deal?
Of course.
So guess what? Live there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I agree.
Live there.
Yeah.
Live there. Why come to a place like America that doesn't believe in your views here?
Because your attitude is we're going to take over. That's the attitude, is we're going to make you guys. Because remember that the guy, who was the guy from Canada? Rob, remember, he's like, we're having babies. We're going to, like, bragging that they're going to take over. But I'm sorry to give you a heads up, bro. America doesn't play that shit. Don't play that over here.
By the way, Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, well, look, this is actually going to be a little counterintuitive. I have a lot of Muslim friends. I have a lot of Arab friends. Lebanon, Egypt. I have a lot of Saudi friends. What we want is to have common sense, moderate, level-headed people of all shapes, sizes, and religions that love America, love the country we're in. Now, not everyone is going to fit into a box. So I don't want to demonize anyone of any particular religion, especially even my Muslim friends, because we need to bring them to the table to say, listen, guys, we need to stamp out one word: radical people with radical ideologies and actual literal interpretations of the Quran from a book from 700 BC, AD. But the reality is this: we're talking about a small percentage of radical people, radical jihadists. But there's 2 billion Muslims in the world. So what's 1% of 2 billion people? 20 million people. So if 20 million people are completely radicalized or jihadists, this is what we have to deal with. And I've said before, as much as we are concerned with this in America, as much as it's concerned in Israel, as much as they're concerned in the UK and in the EU, the 80% of people that die from radical Islamic terrorism are Muslims. So this is something that they're going to have to deal with in their side of the world as well as our side of the world. And hopefully common sense will prevail.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing about this, a few years ago, you were walking on eggshells about this topic. 2 years ago, people were not even 2 years ago, a year ago, people were conflicted, okay? For Andrew Tate to be saying what he's saying right now about Great Britain, you don't believe in our way of living, go back home. I'm sorry, Andrew, you're talking specifically to a community. And he's one of the greatest communicators around the world. For him to say something like that, he's just putting it out there that this is how I feel. So, and for the youth, young men, how much influence did some of these YouTubers or content creators have over young men? A lot. And now numbers and data is coming up. Whoa. Got to be kind of be careful with what's going on over here right now. This is good. Time reveals bad policies. Time reveals bad ideas. And that's exactly what's taking place right now. I got 10 more minutes to go through a couple other stories before we wrap up. Do we want to talk about Sean Ryan and what happened with the Cybertruck stuff?
Yeah.
Rob, if you want to pull that up, I'm going to read a couple of the stories because on Friday, a podcast was done with Sean Ryan and Sam reading an email, okay? And in that email, if you have that video, because in here, I urge everyone to dedicate 45 minutes to fully grasp the details of what has been unfolded. The episode takes a deep dive into a manifesto, an email written, sent to Sam by Matt Liversberger himself within chilling documents that boldly declares, what I'm going to send you is going to change the course of humanity. Matt, a former Green Beret, is at the center of the story. Cybertruck. In this episode, we unpack the manifesto's content, which includes allegations. What's chilling is the same individual who emailed Sam also emailed Sean Ryan also to corroborate this interview. Link below. Okay, so I watched the interview, and it's very, very interesting. Now, fast forward afterwards, I think Sean had to make it. And by the way, Sean is probably one of the best podcasts, top 5 podcasts in the world. He's absolutely blown up the last 2 years. And I think even right now on Spotify, he's ranked number 1 for the last 72 hours. He may still be number 1. He does great job with interviews, military background. And here's the story. Let me read this to you. Matthew Liversberger claimed Cybertruck bombing was to cleanse his mind of brothers he lost and trash feckless leadership of a U.S. near collapse. 37-year-old goes up that this is not a terrorist attack. It was a wake-up call explaining his actions as a way to cleanse my mind of the brothers I've lost and relive myself of the burden of the lives I took. Matt's phone contained another note urging Americans to wake up, accusing the U.S. of being led by weak and feckless leadership and claiming the nation was terminally ill and headed toward collapse. He also emailed a manifesto to Army intelligence officer alleging a conspiracy involving drones with gravity manipulation technology. Is this the email, Rob?
It is.
And what criticism did this email get, Vinny? Is it the fact that the red dots?
So yeah. Do you see where Robbie? Can you zoom in where it says Signet and ISR? Just wherever it has red stuff, Rob. Right? Yeah, right there. So what they're claiming is if this was a sent email, why these are like corrections that you could do, Tom, if somebody's typing on a word or a document like that. But it did reveal because Sean did his research and looked up live on the podcast with that other gentleman of the incidents that he was saying where America was bombing in Afghanistan and civilians were killed, and this guy said that he was a part of it. So Sean Ryan checked it, and it turns out that yes, in fact, that we were bombing and there was civilians blown up. The counterpart was, and again, Pat, people are like, it could be a psyop. Who was this guy? Why did he put it on there? The other one was that the drones on the East Coast weren't drones. They were Gravitas, something by China that was getting launched out of the water, out of submarines. And I mean, people jumped on it pretty fast because if you think about it, China's been doing whatever the hell they want for the past 4 years with the spy balloons and buying land next to military bases. So it turned really fast because another Green Beret that Umberto was telling me about did a story. He did a podcast and he said that all the buildings and all the stuff that this guy told Sean Ryan about was all fake. And then now and again, This guy was apparently burned alive, but then they find his ID. Just like every time there's like 9/11, they found Muhammad Atta's perfect passport on the ground in New York City. So there's a lot of questions. Who knows what to believe at this point? I mean, we know the ISIS guy. They're saying that there was no connection. Which, by the way, this was found in a melted, completely burned out vehicle. Which is
that his ID?
That's his supposedly, allegedly. Matthew Libbesberger's ID. The gun, everything was burned beyond recognition except that. You know what I mean? They had to identify. And then they're saying that his DNA that was found in here, Adam, doesn't match his son. He has a son, and the DNA found in the vehicle doesn't match.
What was the whole story that he participated in a show with Tim Kennedy?
He was on.
What was that?
It was on a show with Tim Kennedy where they're like running and shooting and doing like military.
How long ago was that?
Oh, years ago.
I mean, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
I would say more. Like this is the Green Beret show right here.
It's a Green Beret
on the history.
Rob, how long ago was this? Do we know?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look.
Okay.
Yeah, Tim Kennedy saw the interview, and he says, "Wait a minute, I know this guy. I know this guy. I know this. I did something with this guy." And then he realized, this was something an Inside Edition or TMZ interviewed him about it. That was his partner in this show.
Tim Kennedy is a living, breathing stud.
Yeah, he's a G. He's a G.
So that is from 2013.
Okay, so this is over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you got to know what happens in the military world. Tim Kennedy had some criticism about a month ago, where a couple other. By the way. In every world, this is kind of how it works. They see guys, a bunch of military vets try to create content. One breaks out, they all attack him.
Of course.
Okay. Sean Ryan breaks out, Jocko breaks out, Tim Kennedy breaks out, they attack. No, that's not true. This is
internal
not true.
Guys.
Oh, there's a lot of pride
sort of like
on these
like
stories.
A crab mentality kind of a thing, try to bring them down.
It sometimes happens like we're the real ones, he's not the real one. And some of the stories, maybe it's fabricated, maybe it's over exaggerated, and you've added some stories to it. It's fine, but Tim Kennedy is a man's man. He's a fighter. He fought in the UFC. He's a stud. He's a great communicator. There's history with this guy doing great work. So, yeah, he was on the show with him. But Rob, what has happened since that podcast till today with Sean, with Sam, and how the market has reacted to it? What have you found?
Well, conflicting reports. So at first it came out that the police verified that email was true. However, over the weekend, it turns out that according to the police, that email is not accurate. And then Sean Ryan, I believe, released an apology or a statement stating that he was misinformed when he released that.
Got it. Okay. By the way, good for Sean for doing that. And I think there was a story that said he had left the country. Why do I feel like I read a story that?
Yeah, when I by the way, when we were on the group text message saying, "Hey, watch this interview," I watched it. There was a couple different things. The biggest takeaway that I had out of all this is that the very end. Did you hear the last thing he said? Sean Ryan said, "Man, I wonder if this guy's still freaking alive." The guy that blew himself up, Matthew Libbesberger. I was like, "What? What is that?" So there's some assumption that he might still be out there, that there's sort of a body double. Who knows what's going on there? And then I think what you're referring to is that he said he's taking some time off.
I found a podcast is disappearing after Matthew was alleged Manifesto shown. This is Newsweek. Sean Ryan, host, 3.6 million subscribers, was disappearing for a few days after releasing an episode. Legend Manifesto, Cybertruck, what we are about to release is a mind-boggling, will raise a lot of questions. The email forwarded by intelligence analyst Sam to the FBI stated that drones over New Jersey and advanced Chinese technology call them the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. And so he had no choice. Dude dumped it in my inbox that he had to read it to others. Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just weird, Pat.
But I'm going to tell you something. Here's what I like on what's going on. So think about how many whistleblowers there are and how many people that I talked the other day, me and a guy who was Matt's friend, Special Forces, sent me a message on LinkedIn. Okay. And I called him. I personally called him and we spoke. Okay. And he said, Matt and I were, I'm not going to give his name.
Yep.
Matt and I were both stationed in Germany together. We were on two separate Special Forces teams, but our teams train and work together a lot. I spent 4 weeks with him in Bordeaux with Matt during a language training program, and he was directly in charge of me and two other guys. We broke bread and drank wine almost every day throughout the trip. The same trip, his wife visited us. I haven't spoken to him in almost 8 months, okay? And because he's saying that there's no way in the world this guy's capable of doing something like this. Yeah. And then, so I called him. And I said, hey, are you willing to talk? He says, oh, no way. I'm not willing to talk. And he did not want to sit down and talk about anything. But what I do like about what's going on with this is that normally these types of stories will be sent to CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whoever. How many of them get filtered out? And it's like, yeah, no, we're not going to cover it. Nowadays, podcasters, they're going to screw it up sometimes. It's going to be like, oh, shit, we mishandled that. Yeah, that's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot of times because they're like, oh, my God, I can't believe I have this source. What if this. Here, okay, no, this one was wrong. Great. But guess what? What if 2 out of the 10 are right and it saves 100,000 people's lives or 3,000 people's lives? Guess what? That's progress. Mm-hmm. A form of that where there's a relationship with people and other podcasters where this type of intel is being shared. I'm actually very optimistic about the fact that this is happening. And Sean Ryan seems like a lot of people, well, this guy's he was a government agent under Barack Obama. And, also Sarah Adam, both of them are under this. And, they're intel, they're trained under those guys. So does that mean, like, if I was a soldier while the president was somebody and politically I'm automatic? This is the part where you have to be very, very careful with how quickly people get, success happens, somebody gets some exposure, you're going to get targeted and the mob's going to come after you. Everybody has to be aware of that. Anyways, great podcast today. We've had a lot of different things that we've spoken about, that we have interviews coming out this week. Stay tuned. Some of them are going to be, well, I'm not even going to tell you names. All I know is we have a few podcasts that's going to come out this week. Rob, Thursday, we have another home team.
Correct.
The other ones, I'll just keep it quiet until you see it. The Tony Robbins podcast, people have been raving about it. I've been getting so many messages about people that watch it. They're like, I cannot believe how great it was. The two of you guys sitting down together, I'm glad people enjoyed it. And there's many, many more surprises coming here soon. God bless everybody. Take care. Bye-bye, bye-bye.